which is our regular starting time, so we'll kick the meeting off. Councillor Manchester's just entering, just starting off, Councillor Manchester. And the first thing to do is to acknowledge the traditional custodians of where we meet this afternoon, the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal people, and humbly pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Quite contrary to how we've been having council meetings for the last number of months, with only 2 or 3 in the chambers. We have full chambers today, so some housekeeping. Please have all phones on silence, please. If we are asked to evacuate, everyone will move to the double doors as they come into the chamber, to the right and out onto the footpath, and await further instructions. The next item to mention is the fact that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and will be published in accordance with Council's live streaming in Council meeting policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. The Chair and or the General Manager have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public forum. And today in public forum, we have five speakers, I think, sorry. 4 to speak in regard to the first matter, which is 21212, the planning proposal for 2 to 20 Telegraph Road. The first speaker today is Mr. Stephen Short. We've come to the podium, and with public forum speaking, there's a time of 5 minutes for each speaker. My stopwatch working. We'll give you a little warning shout when you get to the 4-minute mark to let you know it's getting close to time to wind it up. Before Mr. Short starts, I'd just like to clarify a couple of things in regard to speaking. Because of the little bit of confusion, it was stated that Mr. Short might have been speaking against the recommendation. In actual fact, he is speaking for the recommendation of staff and against the proposal. So I just want to make that very clear to everyone that Mr. Short is speaking in favour of the recommendation that was put up by councillors. By council staff, not councillors, I'm sorry. Stephen, the floor's all yours.
Councillors, good afternoon. Okay, just firstly, I'll say that I'm against changing the zoning out there, as I did not purchase property in an industrial area. So I would like it to stay as it is. I have continuing noise going on all the time. I've had different discussions with council representatives that have come out and had a listen. I must say that the noise is not quite as loud as it used to be. The noise is still there. I go back to September 2012 in regards to the Glasgow issue with noise. They had 28 days to comply. It didn't happen. 9 years later, we've still got noise. I was talking with Michael Sutherland, who's in this room right now, this morning. And prior to Apollo purchasing that site out there, he went and looked at purchasing the site. And he was told by council that if he was to purchase it, he could only do maintenance work and a storage facility. So there was no new fabrication work allowed to be done on that site if he purchased it. What's happening these days? full-blown fabrication. Day in, day out. About 20 years ago, Council came up with a proposal to move national engineering. Why? Because of the noise. They came up with a site down at Burrungup. I don't know whether everyone's aware of that. But it never ever went ahead. Council pulled out on it. Why? Because it was the noise thing. They want to move it. Get it out of town. I'm not against it. I'm not against them trying to employ people. I'm against the noise and where they want to do it. Right at my back door. So, if something can be done about that, good and well. But I think they've been let get too big in the wrong area. That's all I've got. And the thing is, like, I have lived on the site where we are since 1986. So I've seen it come and go. I mean, we were able to work horses. When Len Hardy had the site, we could go down through his property, where Apollo are now, and take horses to the track. Can't do it these days. It's just got too big. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. The second speaker on the agenda tonight on the same item, 21212, is Mr. Colin Jackson. Colin. Who is speaking against the recommendation of Council. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors and young community. Thank you for the opportunity to address this forum in relation to the planning proposal presented to Council. I'm speaking today against recommendation 12.7, page 88 of today's agenda. Specifically, significant resources were directed to the planning proposal to ensure the proposed development is compliant from every aspect. We commissioned 12 separate independent reports, various aspects of the development, all of which supported our proposal. At the forefront of this were the acoustic reports, and the design was developed with this in mind, to not only contain the impact of proposed development, but to substantially reduce the impact of the current facility. I want to reiterate, reduce the impact of the current facility. I've stated many times, councillors and others, I cannot fix the existing problem any further without the ability to contain our operation within a building envelope. Multiple acoustic investigations all demonstrate compliance with existing arrangements. However, this is not the point. We have to and will continue to do more to address the concerns. The planning proposal brings many benefits to the community and the area more generally. Sharp architecturally designed buildings on the Eastern Gateway to Young, $100 million of activity in the year immediately following construction, $35 million per annum of economic activity in the region thereafter. The creation, on a flow-on effect, of more than 160 jobs in the region. Classy office and manufacturing facilities attract quality personnel to the area. To reject the proposal out of hand would be a devastating outcome for Young and the Hilltops LGA. Specifically, missed opportunities for more well-paid jobs in the area. The existing facility would likely return to its former dilapidated state. Our commitment to manufacturing in the region has recently been recognised by the New South Wales Government for its Regional Job Creation Fund. My great concern is this, that the rejection of this proposal is a signal to New South Wales Government that Young region is not a reliable candidate for further investment in employment-generating businesses such as ours, and the same applies for private investment. In a lot of ways, the report from QA Planning is a reflection of this. There is a lack of local planning, and it would appear that there is no plan to even consider significant investment. In conclusion, after much consideration, there is no alternative solution for us to develop our business in Young. The Telegraph Road site is ideal location, and we seek to copy Amboss stock feeds, Riverina, whatever they're called, arrangement by way of a spot rezoning or a Schedule 1. Now, I've got a little bit disappointed not to be able to have our planner speak at this forum, so I've just done a few dot points on some of his suggestions on the report, and just a few that I've got here is that he was obviously disappointed that he couldn't speak due to the arrangements. We've had limited access to strategic planning staff to discuss the planning and what was presented. We've had inadequate time to read, comprehend, respond both council and the independent consultant's report. There was 3 recommendations in the report. Recommendation 3, there was 3 recommendations, and the report from council does not really address these 3 recommendations. Now, just notes concerning the planning report. Council's report fails to adequately present the findings of the QA report by not discussing the 3 recommendations. It misrepresents our intention for the plan proposal. Our intention was a Schedule 1, not a rezoning. And look, that's probably enough for me in terms of the report. I just want to reiterate the serious benefit that we see in this development. We from the bottom of our heart, we would like to support the community, particularly our neighbours. We understand there's been some angst and some people that would like to see us gone. We are there to support them. We are there to rectify the problem, not to create a bigger one. And I would encourage and applaud the councillors to support us so that we can help the region. That's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Callum. The next speaker on the same item, 21212, is Tracy Lamb, and also in regard to Tracy's application to speak in open forum, Tracy will be speaking in support of the council recommendation. 5 minutes, Tracy, if needed. I'll give you a little warning at the 4-minute bell. Thank you.
So my partner and I own 2 properties in very close proximity to Apollo, and I want to support the independent assessment and do not support the planning proposal. I have a number of key concerns. One, I guess we spoke about this on previous things, and they wanted to expand their operating hours, their compliance years. I believe they're not always compliant on their operating hours as well as their noise. They might be trying to improve it at the moment, but there's still excessive noise that we continually hear. Another thing I don't think they would be compliant on is where they park their trucks and forklifts sometimes on the sides of the road. I probably drive past there 3 or 4 times a day as well as my partner and his staff. And my partner also tries to take horses down the side of the road and has had a number of issues with their parking. And I understand you have to load trucks and everything, but we have had a few issues. Another thing I'm concerned about is the devaluing of our land. So obviously we own 2 properties. One land lived there for over 20 years, and the other one we purchased was in 2018, and we weren't planning on buying the property next door to, or the back of, I should say, the back of an industrial area. So I guess it affects our long-term value of our properties as well. Finally, I'm a mum of 2 children under the age of 3, so we're regularly at home and outside, and I'm concerned about the long-term effects of living near an industrial area. We're always outside playing, you can always hear the noises, and I don't want my children growing up near an industrial area. We live there because it is a residential area. I'm the same as Stephen. I believe in trying to improve the young community, and I'd like to see further developments, but I just don't think this is the right development in this location. So I just wanted to say thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tracy. I might just clarify something at this stage early in the piece, that what we're talking about here, everyone, is a planning proposal. It isn't a development application. There's a development application in front of council in regard to some office building, which looks very exciting. The matter we're talking about with 21212 is a planning proposal, not a development application. They are 2 very different matters. The next speaker we have tonight on the going to speak on 2 matters, I believe. Is that right, Nathan? So which one would you tell me which one you want to speak on first? The planning proposal, or you're going to speak to the development? Okay, up you come then. Mr. Nathan Jackson, and he's speaking for the recommendation when it comes to regard of item 21213, which is the demolition of the existing structure and office and industrial alterations and a new 3-storey beautiful office complex. So, floor's yours, Nathan. Same thing. 5 minutes to get to 4 minutes. I'll give you a warning. Thank you.
Yeah, you want me to flow on to the...
And then we finish that and we'll go on. Yep. Yep. Well, what I say that we'll stop and you start again because I'll just indicate that they're two very separate matters.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and young community. Thank you for the opportunity to address this forum in relation to the development application at 10 to 12 Telegraph Road. I'm speaking today in support of this recommendation to grant consent for this development application to alter and extend the existing structure, demolish the offices and create a new state-of-the-art office facility at the eastern gateway of Young. I'd like to point out that the extension and upgrade of our facility will help Apollo mitigate, abate and contain any impact there may be on our surrounds. In fact, the alterations will encapsulate part of our operation and significantly help reduce any impact. As you're aware, the proposed development relies on existing use rights. We are only upgrading the facility that is already there, in view of creating and providing adequate and accessible facilities for the welfare of our employees. As David mentioned, we were recipients of a grant from the New South Wales Government's Regional Job Creation Fund for this project. Part of the criteria for receiving the funds is for Apollo to create 37 new employment positions by 2024. We're well on the way to achieving this. This upgrade is directly tied to the grant, as it was part of our submission to the state government, which they endorsed. The capital expenditure grant requirements are that this project is completed by the end of May 2022. Hence our urgency to get this project completed in a timely manner. The upgraded office facility will help us retain our existing staff, attract talent to the region, and assist with our commitment to create new jobs on the Hilltops region. Now that the country is opening up again, and with the government stimulating the economy, there is potential to bring these opportunities to regional New South Wales. I look forward to your support of these recommendations.
Thank you, Nathan. And if you stay there now and you get to speak on item 21.212, the planning proposal for 2 to 20 Telegraph Road. The floor's yours, Nathan.
Thank you once again. I'd also like to speak on another item in relation to the planning proposal for 2 to 20 Telegraph Road. I'm speaking against the recommendation to not support the planning proposal. First, we'd like to acknowledge those that are for the agreement that there has been some issues as a result of our operations on Telegraph Road. We're not shying away from that, and we're here to fix it. And we have sought to address these issues within the constraints that already exist. By allowing us to develop the land and build a purpose-built facility, we can address these issues by good building design. If the recommendation is endorsed by the councillors to reject the planning proposal, the problem remains, and we are unable to work with all stakeholders to solve the problem. It's worth noting that Apollo have undertaken multiple acoustic studies, all of which demonstrate compliance. Nevertheless, we must strive to do more to benefit our community. From the very outset of the development, this planning proposal, Apollo engaged top-level acoustic engineers for the design of the building to mitigate, abate and contain noise pollution. Over the past 18 months, we have matured as a business and as individuals. At Apollo, we believe we have worked in conjunction with the council to address the issues that have arisen. There's a broader issue to play here, and the question is whether the Hilltop Council is willing to support economic growth in the region and provide job opportunities for the youth, bring additional skilled personnel to the area, which in turn has a huge flow-on effect. A knockout blow to a development like this will send a signal to other potential investments in the area, specifically state and federal governments. So, Mr Mayor and fellow councillors, ask yourself this: do I want to be a supporter of economic growth in the Hilltops Council? Do I want to be responsible for having an influence in resolving this existing problem? Would I like to see an increased benefit for the community, such as youth retention, training and the likes? If your answer is yes to any of these, you're a supporter of the planning proposal and must vote against the recommendation. We must find a way to work together to resolve the issue for the betterment of the stakeholders, including our neighbours in the surrounding areas. Our desire is to work with the Council in a constructive manner to address any issues that arise. We thank you for your time and attention this evening and look forward to your support of economic stimulus to this region. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Nathan, and thank you to all the speakers in public forum. It's not the easiest thing for anyone to do, and I fully understand that. Park that there. Item number 4 on the agenda is attendance and apologies and applications for leave. Now, I have been notified that Councillor Flannery is running late, but he is on his way. Any other apologies? Everyone else is present, I believe, aren't they? So we might just note that Councillor Flannery has made contact and he is on his way. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, councillors, is the expressions of sympathy. Could we please be all upstanding for a moment's silence? I ask we have a moment's silence for the following: David Patterson, Una Ford, Judith Dowling, Florence Waddington, Judy Hesketh, James Sheehan, Jeffrey Mott, Colin McCaffrey, Ronald Tanson, Kenneth Mason, Peter Moss, William Stewart, John Watson, Margaret Mullins, Darcy Causer and Cheryl Fenson. Thank you, everybody. The next item on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes from Council's ordinary meeting on the 22nd of September 2021. Do I have a mover and a seconder for those, please? Councillor Manchester moved, seconded Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. You just have to bear with the chair a bit. Everyone in the room, it's a matter of looking around the room again instead of the screen that we've been operating on. The next item on the agenda is disclosures of interest. Do we have any disclosures of interest from any councillors? Councillor Stadmiller.
Mr Mayor, my name's not listed in the development applications, but I think due to the description given in the address, I may have two pecuniary interest matters in, bear with me, development application statistics for September 2021.
Noted as such, thank you. No other disclosures? No, okay. Item number 8, mayoral minute. There's no mayoral minute to present. Item 9 is the mayoral report, which is a calendar of events that I attended in a prior month. Councillors, they're all listed there, and if there's any particular questions on any of them, I'm quite happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'd ask that someone move and second that they've accepted. Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Manchester, thank you. All those in favour? We now move to councillors' reports, and councillors, as you can see, I have a number of written reports there, one from Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Horton, Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Rolls. So I'll roll through them first if they'd like to speak to anything that they've got there. Councillor Armstrong. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Horton.
7 meetings attended and they're in the business paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Connor.
No, just as noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have 2 to add. On Monday the 25th, I was present at the BOOROWA Business Chamber meeting, and today, 27th, I was at another Hilltops Arts meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll come to Councillor Manchester.
Meeting and the general GM review on the 18th.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Walker.
Meetings is minuted.
Thank you. Come around to Councillor Stadmiller.
Meetings is minuted.
Thank you. And we go to Councillor Wallace.
Meetings is minuted. The GM's performance review, the briefing and the workshop in the calendar. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Flannery still hasn't arrived, so I'll ask for a move and a second that those reports be accepted. Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Wallace, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Takes me over to Community Recognition Scheme. Councillor Flannery has just entered the chambers. Welcome, Councillor. Councillor, I'll just step back one step. Councillor Flannery's arrived. I'll give him the opportunity to present his report for meetings if he'd like. Councillor.
Meeting has minuted, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. No, Councillor Flannery, thank you. And so we're just up to Community Recognition Scheme. Does anybody have anything to report on that matter at the moment? Councillor Stadmiller.
Just one, Mr. Mayor. Molly Stewart, a resident of Harden, recently received an award for her efforts in potentially saving her mother's life, Sue Stewart, who suffered from a brain aneurysm, and she received an award at the Harden Ambulance Station on Saturday with local member Steph Cook. So Molly suffers from a number of disabilities which make her life hard, and for her to be able to do that for her mother on that day was very commendable. So I'd just like to acknowledge her. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. I'm pretty sure I'll have no trouble getting a seconder and a mover to Councillor Manchester, Councillor O'Connor to make sure that a letter of recognition is sent on to those people. So all those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Item 12 is the General Manager's report. So what we'll do now, councillors, I will seek a mover and a seconder to change the order of business that we're addressing, given that we had speakers in public forum, and that's item 21.212 and item 21.213, and that we bring them items forward. Moved Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor Walker. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So we go to page 88 in the hard copy, and that is item 21.212, planning proposal for 2 to 20 Telegraph Road, Young, rezoning request for general industry. And councillors, we have a report there and a recommendation there. So to start things on, we're going to move in a seconder.
I'd like to move that we do support the recommendation.
Councillor Manchester, I'm after a mover and a seconder to start off with. You moving the recommendation so we get to speak on it or not? No. Do I have a mover or a seconder for the recommendation? Councillors, I'll just alert you.
Move for discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Walker.
I'll second it.
And seconded Councillor Stadmiller. If it doesn't get moved and gets seconded, Councillor, it falls through the floor. So we have a mover, Councillor Walker, and a seconder, Councillor Stadmiller. On that note, I would like to foreshadow a motion.
So would I, Mr. Mayor, after you.
Thank you. And that motion, given in light of all the considerations that have been taken on board, would read in my terms, and no doubt we'll have to have this trimmed up by planning people, but I would like to move that in the light of the recommendation failing, that council forward the planning proposal from Apollo onto the relevant state authorities to be assessed as it is. I believe that the proposal at least needs to be sent to a state level. I'm pretty sure there's some wording would have to be adjusted there, I'd imagine, by the planning people, so help anyone that might.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I had anticipated a foreshadow motion would come to the table, and to identify and ensure that we have the correct legislative wording. I have forwarded that on to the Minutes Secretary, who may be able to put that up on the screen for councillors to consider.
Well, it won't be to consider yet, but they can have a look at it before we go back to the original. And Councillor O'Connor.
And I'll second your foreshadowed motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. So we might just give all councillors a second just to read that. I presume, can everyone read that?
Do you want me to read it out for everyone?
General Manager will read it out for everyone, because I'm sorry the people behind it, you can't see what this
Okay,
is.
so for the people watching on live streaming and for the members in the public gallery, the foreshadowed motion, I will state the foreshadowed motion only becomes the motion should the motion that has been moved and seconded be lost. So this will become the motion should that occur. That Council A delegates to the General Manager to prepare the planning proposal document as submitted and including the Council independent review of the planning proposal. B, forward the planning proposal to the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment pursuant to section 3.34 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979, seeking a gateway determination. C, subject to the gateway determination, undertake public exhibition and community consultation on the planning proposal in accordance with the conditions of the gateway determination and Council's community participation plan, and D, receive a further report on the outcomes of the public exhibition and the community consultation.
I think I did preempt that there'd be some changes to my wording. I just didn't think there'd be that much, but for the purpose that needs to be done, and the intent is exactly the same, so I'm happy enough for that. So there's the foreshadowed motion. It sits where it is. I'm open and I'll go to Councillor Walker, move for discussion the recommendation that's actually in front of us that we are to deal with firstly. Councillor Walker.
Wait a minute, I untangle. We've got the many attachments on. I do apologise.
Right, Councillor.
I'm wish to speak, but I'm against the proposal as presented to the in the meeting. So can I speak against at this stage, or?
I'm sorry, I just want to get some clarification. You're speaking against the recommendation?
Correct.
Yep, you're not speaking against the proposal, you're speaking against the recommendation.
Correct.
Thank you. My word, you can speak against it, Councillor. You moved it.
What's been presented to us is a proposal from a consultant which covers three main issues. One might just raise them, which to me, I believe has been covered in the report. One issue that wasn't covered but been certainly mentioned here tonight, which I'd like to address, is noise, and has been very emphatic in the proposed design, that by the proposed design, that issue has been addressed. But I have concerns that it is mentioned in the report that some of those extra proposals to break down the acoustic barriers, and it's listed on page 150, there is a concern from the opposing consultant, or council's consultant, that even though these acoustic barriers would work, they've got concerns that they have not got existing rights to erect those barriers. To me, that's a contradiction of terms. But to go back to the three issues, one was the state environmental planning policies and ministerial directions. It seems odd to me where we're just putting a maybe motion, a foreshadowed motion up when to go to the state environment planning policies, when it's already been addressed on 510 of page 116 of the, and I'll look it up if I can read it out, just bear with me. The fact that they've already received a grant from state, then to say that it's and the state planning environment is a contradiction of terms. The other one says implementation of original plan. Well, it says there that the direction on page 116, direction applies as a planning proposal is being prepared by the relevant planning authority. So that's already being done.
No, Councillor Walker, the matter of going to the state and saying it's already been to the state isn't quite correct, and your understanding it's to go to the state, the relevant authorities, to go through to the gateway process. And that's what my foreshadowed motion is hoping will happen. Your comment that it's already been to the state, why would it go back there, isn't quite correct.
Interpretations. Okay, we'll move on to the second point, infrastructure. When we talked about...
I just might remind everyone again, we are talking about a planning proposal, not a DA application. Councillor Walker, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm looking at the second point, infrastructure, traffic and servicing, where it highlights traffic issues when it's on, there's a perceived issue there when it's on the main traffic route. It also may be in need of a upgrade as part of the conditions of that planning proposal. But this is what's covered here. There again, it says consistent with transport proposals on page 116. In point 3.4, the direction applies as the planning proposal is being prepared by relevant planning authorities that will alter provisions relating to the urban land. And it goes on from there. The third point is details of community consultation. No specific community consultation has been undertaken by the proponent, and it is noted by me that even though this has been rejected, there's been no negotiations, it is claimed tonight, and that by staff before the non-approval recommendations has been put before the council. So I challenge all 3 points that are there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Walker. I just only comment I'd make on the last point was that I went to 42 meetings involved with an LEP over a period of 18 months to discuss zoning. But so Councillor Walker spoke against the recommendation. Would anyone like to speak for the recommendation? Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, the Apollo proposal does not satisfactorily demonstrate merit for the following reasons. It is inconsistent with strategic objectives relating to protection of the environment, which is so important these days. Secondly, the proposal is inconsistent with Hilltops Council endorsed local strategies planning statement. Council engaged AQ Planning Proprietary Limited to undertake an independent assessment of the Apollo planning proposal. Some of their findings I have addressed, and there are many more to be found in the business paper. Mr. Mayor, as a councillor, I do not have the knowledge or the expertise in these matters. That is why council employs professional people and, when appropriate, engages private and independent professional planning people for judgment. Mr. Mayor, as such, I place my trust in the professionals, and until such time as they are proven to be wrong, I intend to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Do I have another speaker against the recommendation?
Just a question, if I may.
Question, Councillor Wallace.
To the relevant director. Some mention's been made of the recommendations of the AQ planning report on page 179. I suppose what I'm asking is whether recommendation 3 there, although it would give a different outcome to recommendations 1 and 2, would it still, in effect, take just as long because the same requirements that are in that recommendation are almost identical to the ones that are in 1 and or 2?
Director's just taking the question on board.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I understand what you're proposing is that we not send it to the department as yet and go back to the applicant and to address the matters highlighted in those dot points. Is that correct?
Well, I suppose I'm wondering what process recommendation 3 envisages. I mean, it's saying proceed with the proposal, but all these matters have to be resolved. Is that something? Would that timeline for the resolution of those matters be just as long as if you went for recommendation 1 or 2?
It would be envisaged that as these matters have been identified by a external source, that it would be the same matters that would be highlighted by the department to address. So the time frame would most likely be parallel.
Thank you for that. Do we have a question to speaker? Councillor
Question, Mr Mayor.
Armstrong. Councillor Armstrong.
Just following on from Councillor Wallace's question there, I guess regardless of the outcome tonight, the matter can go back to the state either via the Land and Environment Court or as a result of Council's decision. Is that correct?
If Council, if you're through you, Mr Mayor, if what you're stating is if we kept the recommendation as it stands, the option to the applicant is to seek a rezoning review through the department, and then that is actually referred to the JRPP of the Southern Branch, and they will do the assessment and determination on their behalf.
So it wouldn't be going to the Land and Environment Court,
no.
It'd be going via JRPP.
Correct.
So there's a process in place. I guess one of the things that concerns me about this is that one of the speakers indicated that I felt that there was inadequate time to respond to the QA report, and in particular the 3 recommendations that were in there. The opportunity to explore those, I guess, is something that the proponent hasn't had sufficient time to continue on with. In a perfect world, if this was to go to the state either via a JRPP or straight to Department of Planning, if the QA report was considered a peer review and the issues raised in recommendation 3 were addressed by the proponent's consultants, would that add value to the proposal, regardless of whether it went via JRPP or via a council resolution?
Through you, Mr Mayor. I do understand the question that you've asked of me. The direction the consultant of the applicant undertook in relation to the information in this report that they've prepared, it would be a completely different direction. The way I see it is a lot of the information provided in the planning assessment that was undertaken by QA planning or the documentation submitted to council is actually looking at Apollo, if Apollo were to operate out of that site. However, the planning proposal is to look at the zoning or the permissible use of that land. So regardless, if you take Apollo away and what they offer and bring to the table in relation to employment and through expansion, that may not, I'm not saying it is their intention or not their intention, but that's mooted, basically. What you're looking at is the zoning or the permissible use of that land. So they could come back, the use of that land could change to industrial. That is no confirmation or guarantee that Apollo are going to continue to build across that site. It could be sold the next day. All you're looking at is not the operation of Apollo or the building and the development of that site. You're looking at the industrial zoning that they're requesting, or the permissible use of industrial zoning.
Yes, certainly, I understand that. I guess that the point of the question was if any planning proposal was to consider the QA report as a peer review and address the items that are listed in recommendation number 3, would that improve the chances of that planning proposal's success?
I would also flag the idea if it went back to the applicant for a request for further information or a review or a revision or a modification. There has been additional ministerial directions that have come in force that may not allow them to go down that path. of the rezoning over the entire site. It may need to look at under the current young LEP, I will say, not the Hilltops LEP, with the zoning of that land. There may be more fortuitous to send it to the department and have the department ask them. However, I'm up to you, councillors, if you want me to take it back and go back to the applicant to provide all this additional information as part of their application. That is up to the councillors. It's there.
I guess the question I'm asking is, would that add value? Would that add value to the cleaning proposal?
Certainly, any additional information would be for the benefit of the department, in either for or against the applicant. I can't say.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Councillor. And Director, Councillor Flannery was waving, then Councillor O'Connor. Speaking or question or?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question for the Director, and it probably relates as much to the foreshadowed motion as this one, but is following Councillor Armstrong's line of questioning. Do you believe that including the independent review in the submission to the department will prejudice the applicant?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't believe it will, because as Councillor Flannery and Councillor Armstrong have identified, the recommendations there in giving the department options of what could assist may be of benefit to the department in understanding that there's been a peer review. They may not look at through the same lens as what we do, and so they may not see it as relevant to us. Again, it's a planner's, it's an independent assessment, it's our opinion. Putting it forward to the department, they may not identify it with the same lens. They may already have the options there to assist the applicant to provide that additional information as part of the gateway determination, and allow the community and put it to the gateway so the community can have their voice.
Thank you for that, Director. Councillor O'Connor.
A question as well to the Director.
Yep.
How thorough were AQ when they looked at the planning proposal? How thorough were they with the actual site, like the investigation of the site and pros and cons of the site?
We do have AQ, through you, Ms Mayor, we do have AQ Planning linked in with us on Zoom. They can provide additional information. I will just state with COVID, they weren't, and they are in a Canberrian company, they weren't able to come out to the site. They haven't physically seen the site, but all our intramaps and all our data and everything was available to them. But in addition, I can provide Stacey Quayle from AQ Planning. She'll be able to give you additional information. Are you available there, Stacey?
Yes, I am, Claire, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, as Claire said, we were unable to attend the site. We were able to look at plans and all the information that was provided to us by council. But I think the fundamental thing to look at here in our assessment is that we used the strategic merit test, which is a two-part test. The first thing you must be satisfied about in that test is that the planning proposal demonstrates strategic merit. If it does not demonstrate strategic merit, you don't do a site-specific merit. This is what the JRPP would look at as well if it went for a rezoning review. It's what the Department of Planning will also look at. It's in the guidelines of how you assess a planning proposal, so that's the basis that we assess the planning proposal. So on that basis, we did an assessment on its strategic merits, and for the reasons outlined in our report, we have stated that it does not demonstrate strategic merit, therefore you don't proceed to site-specific merit. However, for a thoroughness of the assessment of the application, we did do a site-specific test against the planning proposal, looking at all the documentation that the proponent has provided. And, oh, sorry, I thought someone had a question there. And we've had a look at those studies and found that if you were to proceed, irrespective of it not demonstrating that strategic merit, you would require additional information from the proponent particularly relating to biodiversity, geotech and flooding.
A point of order, Mr Mayor, if I may.
Councillor Walker.
We've got a consultant having the opportunity to address council. Does the other consultant have the same opportunity?
Look, I'll pass to the General Manager. There has been a conflicting flow of information from state level in regard to who can be present at meetings, who could do Zoom, who couldn't do Zoom, as late as up till late this afternoon. So I'll pass to the General Manager to clarify that point.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The protocol for any report prepared on behalf of council, the consultants, and the overriding principle has been the auditors or the New South Wales audit officers has been in the last few years. They are available to take questions from councillors in relation to their audit opinion, and that's the same for consultants. I did reach out to ONG and they said that this was inappropriate. In relation to consultants on behalf of any applicant, etc., they have the same rights as any addressing through the public forum. It's not for a debate. It's only the consultant is only there because it is the consultant's report here to answer councillors' questions.
Point of order again, Mr Mayor. I've got an email. I think we all received an email that they wanted to address the meeting today, and we found problems that they couldn't.
Through you, Mr Mayor, up until today, the advice that I had was for public forum, the public forum for consultants, they had to be physically present at the chambers and be double vaccinated. That was the conditions that I'd been advised.
Well, point of order again. Speaker is not in the chambers.
That's correct.
I might take it over here. Thanks very much to the consultant for answering that question that was directed to you. There'll be no further questions directed to the consultant, and we'll move on with business or any other questions from councillors that may ask the Director of Planning or any comments. And if not, I'll Councillor Manchester.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a question. I certainly support Councillor Walker's comments earlier on about, but just a question to the Director. One of the speakers did talk about rezoning, but also the Schedule 1. Now, is the Schedule 1 permissible on this site?
Where they are Schedule 1, that would be seeking for permissible uses. It would still go through the planning proposal process and go out there. So it is that Schedule 1 seeking permissible uses as per the industrial use of that land. So it is up to the department to say which process they would like to. Again, the LEP is a department plan, so it is up to the department to decide, is it a rezoning or is it a Schedule 1, and it's not up to the applicant.
Thank you for that, Director. Councillor O'Connor.
Sorry, another question. If the proposal was sent without the recommendations from AQ Planning, wouldn't that be less likely to direct departments? So, you know, I think if the proposal was sent as it is, then the department has a totally objective view of it. Yeah, I thought so.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I concur. Again, it could just be a different lens that the department will wear. Either or.
They need.
Thank you for that, Director. Councillor Stadmiller.
I'm just seeking clarification, Mr Mayor. The AQ Planning report doesn't recommend that the proposal go ahead, does it? No. I think we should disregard the AQ Planning report and not send it if it's going to be sent off for a gateway to.
That's exactly up to individual councillors. Include the Director of Planning to speak to that.
Can I just clarification, if the department asks for the report, can we provide that report? Yeah, noting it will be form part of the council ordinary meetings, so it is a public document.
Look, I'm no expert in that area, but I would imagine that we would supply the state, doesn't matter which sort of evidence was, if we were requested to. We exist at the convenience of the state government. Councillor Stadmiller, another question.
Just on page 137, Mr Mayor, it says this planning report has been prepared exclusively for Hilltops Council. The information does not purport to constitute legal advice and AQ Planning does not accept responsibility for the consequences of any reliance which may be placed on this material by any person. No part of this report may be reproduced, transmitted, stored in a retrieval system or adapted in any form or by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording or otherwise, without written position from AQ Planning. So it would be AQ Planning's decision as to whether it would be sent, not ours.
That's correct. You're exactly 100% correct. Yep. So, okay, councillors.
Just quick question, clarification. This report's published in a council business paper. That council business paper is a public document. I think that the any suggestion that we hold back the report is absolutely ludicrous, because it's already out there.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and obviously council have permission to display that report. So, okay, let's get off the technicalities. I think the little ones. There is a recommendation there, and we all know what the recommendation reads, and there's a foreshadowed motion on the floor. So to do. Excuse me?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the foreshadowed motion referred to the other part of the sending the report.
I foreshadowed a motion that's been up there and we've looked at.
Yep.
We're dealing with this here. Yep. Okay. We good? Right. Yep. Okay. So I've had a mover and a seconder. So what we need to do now is put the recommendation that's in front of councils.
Right, a reply?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Walker, my word, you have right to reply. I'm sorry. Councillor, throw the bottle at me.
Yeah. I'll make two observations out of the discussions. Is one to suggest that the proponent didn't engage professional people when they spent some $300,000 on professional reports there is very misleading in my mind. The other point is there's what if and hypothetical information, like what if the block was sold. I think the opponent has made it very, very clear what their intent are, and it's all about the advancement of our community of Hilltops region. And it's a regional development. It's just a local development. It's a regional development and recognised as such. The third point, it's been admitted that the consultant who we taken advice of hasn't visited the site. So it's a bit confusing in my mind where this great professional information come from. The fourth point I'd like to make is at no time has the proponent had the opportunity to address any concerns that the council might have. That was just we'll vote against the recommendation without any communication with the proponent to address any concern the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Mr Mayor, just a quick question to delay you a bit further. Can you have two foreshadowed motions, or do you have to wait?
Had Councillor O'Connor indicated she may have been going to, and I don't know whether she still wants to indicate that or not. At the moment, we only have one. Councillor O'Connor.
Mine would be more an amendment to your foreshadowed motion.
If we get there, we'll see what that is, I suppose. Yep.
I have another foreshadowed motion.
Councillor Wallace would like to put a foreshadowed motion up, please.
That the applicant be invited to respond to the matters raised in the recommendations by AQ Planning and submit those responses to council by the time of the next council meeting or the one thereafter.
There's one. Through you, Mr Mayor, there's one more council meeting being in 24th of November, and then the next council meeting with the extraordinary meeting on the 5th of January. So you said the next meeting or the one thereafter, that will then go into February of next year.
So be it.
Okay, thank you. Just
through you, Mr Mayor, we're in caretaker mode. This planning proposal, I don't believe, can be determined as we're in November. I'd have to confirm that. I'm not 100% sure, but we are in caretaker mode.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, that's understood. My understanding of the legislation is there needs to have been 25 submissions in relation to the development application or something of that nature, or it be deemed refused. And if 25 submissions had not been received, it can be determined. If it would be deemed refused, then the matter must be brought back.
Thank you for that, staff. On that note,
Question, sorry, Mr Mayor, to you and the General Manager, noting Councillor Wallace's foreshadowed motion, which by virtue of the situation would mean we'd have to vote out your foreshadowed motion to get to his. It would be more appropriate, I think, to move an amendment to your motion to get it right. I think we can pick up the content of your motion.
thank you for that, Councillor Flannery and Councillor Wallace. As I said, when I put the initial foreshadowed motion up, I knew there'd be some wording to be tweaked around it. It was the intent behind my foreshadowed motion that this needed to go to the state, and that's why I put it up in the first place, in case the recommendation was voted down. On that note, I'm going to put the recommendations in front of the council. All those in favour? Councillor Walker, I don't. All those in favour of the recommendation?
No.
0. The recommendation fails, and the foreshadowed motion by myself is what we are now discussing. Councillor O'Connor.
Could I put an amendment, with your permission, that the report from AQ not be included in the planning proposal that is sent for the gateway determination unless they specifically request it?
I won't have that in my foreshadowed motion, no.
Okay, well then that's another foreshadowed motion.
I think it's irrelevant, actually. I don't think we can do that. But I may be wrong there, and there may be technicalities around me that I'm wrong. Right. I don't think we can, yeah. No. Yeah, it's a public document, and that's the way it is. But thank you, but yeah, no, I don't think it needs to be in the foreshadowed motion that I've put up there. Happy to take other amendments. Councillor Stadmiller was next, actually.
Mr Mayor, just when we put your foreshadowed motion up, can we just get up there and have a minute to go through it? I want to be very clear on exactly what's going on.
And I want to be very clear that every councillor is very clear. We've had difficulty before with LEPs and wording and understanding, and that's why I call for assistance from staff. So there we are. Councillors, would you like it read out again, or can you read it? I know that.
Can I propose an amendment now, Mr Mayor?
You may, most certainly, Councillor Wallace.
It would be, it'd either come before A or after A, I imagine, to the effect that the applicant be asked to provide material addressing the recommendations of AQ planning and provide those to council within 30 days.
I moved it. I didn't need a seconder, but I had one, yeah. So, Deirdre, did you get that? It's just going up, so we'll put that in there so councillors can read that.
Excuse me, Councillor Wallace, do you mean recommendation 3, the information they requested in recommendation 3?
All the recommendations, Councillor. Yeah.
Yes.
No, not from AQ planning, to provide material addressing the report of AQ, the recommendations of AQ planning. Addressing the recommendations of AQ planning. Within 30 days.
I haven't got a problem with that, except it basically reads that we're telling the applicant what to do, but I haven't got a problem with that. As long as the applicant hasn't got a problem with it, I haven't got a problem with it. So, okay, that's in there as part, and whether the applicant complies with that, I imagine would be up to the applicant.
Rita, are you okay? Councillor O'Connor, are you okay with that?
I don't need a second to be okay with it, actually.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Just on that point. So I'm pretty happy with the way that's been reworded. I heard Councillor Wallace and Councillor Flannery, you're happy with the dot point B, the that's been put in there. Very good. Councillors, I will ask are in the room. Would anyone like to speak against? I'll speak for it in a moment, but I'll speak for it now. I believe the planning proposal deserves to go to the state level, to be judged on its merits by the state authority, who, no matter what the original recommendation would have happened, the applicant has the right, most indeed, to go back and ask for it to be reviewed. So I believe that the merit is there for that to happen, and that's why I put up the foreshadowed motion. Does anyone like to speak against the foreshadowed motion? Councillor Stadmiller speaking against the foreshadowed motion.
Mr Mayor, I'm only speaking against the aspect of the AQ planning report going to the department because I think it's going to be detrimental, but I'm fully supportive of Apollo going forward.
Thank you very much, and Councillor Stadman, and I can assure you that, and I can speak for everyone in the room, I'd imagine, that anyone who wouldn't be in support of economic benefit to our Hilltops region probably shouldn't be in this room, Councillor, so thank you for that. On that note, I'm going to put the foreshadowed motion. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
No, those against? Councillor Walker was against. The foreshadowed motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. That takes us to the next item I brought forward, which is 21213 on page 192. Now, this is a bit exciting, this. Where am I? There I am. Councillors, this is the demolition of the existing structure and industrial alterations and additions to the workshop and the office building. And as I've seen, I've been privy to the design. It's a bit exciting and a very pleasing part of it, and I won't go on too much, is the fact that the blaster will be enclosed. So that should make some people happy. So, councillors, the report's there. I have a mover and a second at the start. Move, Councillor O'Connor. Seconded, Councillor Rolls. Thank you. Okay. So it was moved by Councillor O'Connor. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor O'Connor?
Sure, thank you. I just think it's an extremely well planned DA. It's incredibly exciting to have this kind of development in our community, and I couldn't see anything to fault in it, to be honest.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone like to speak against it? No. Well, I have a question for the Director, just in regard to, and I'm, as I said, very excited about this part of it, but I do have a question in regard to, and it was mentioned by one of the speakers, parking and car parking and vehicle access. I note in the report from a DA that was granted in 2019 that there was a number of car park spaces to be taken care of, 20 formalised car parks to be provided prior to an issue of occupation certificate of the new works. The formalised car park is yet to be constructed and an occupation certificate has not been issued for the latest works. While I'm fully supportive of this project that's in front of us, I'm probably seeking some assurance and some guarantee that the conditions of consent that are set when we vote DA's approval for matters like this, that they're complied with and met. That reads that there's the occupation certificate hasn't been issued for those works that was in a DA in 2019. And the formalised car parking is yet to be constructed. I struggle to see how that can be. So when I read down a bit further, and I know it's in the planning and the applicant is planning to use the Crown Road, which they're organising to take over, which is fantastic. There will be an additional 18 car park spaces put there, and it says that in the report, which is really good. And there was some misunderstanding about who owned what land in the middle, and Apollo have been very good, and they've taken that over, and they'll use that for car parking for that is necessary spaces to go with this new works. My concern is that staff probably need to communicate with Apollo in regard to the conditions that haven't been met from the 2019 DA. Director of Planning, would you like to mention or speak? Have I got that right or wrong? Or?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I've just concurred that question with my fellow officers here. It is that the 2019 DA is a private certifier, so we can undertake we can look into the compliance of that matter.
Thank you. That's all I'm asking for. And then that, I fully support this DA.
Question,
Councillor Armstrong.
Just in regard to those parking spaces, is this parking space that's foreshadowed in this application, is that in addition to the parking spaces that were required from the former 2019 application?
The report reads the applicant has proposed an additional 18 car parks, so it is additional to the 20 that are already required from the prior DA.
So the total number of car parks to be constructed is 38, is that correct?
By my reading of it, yes. that correct, staff?
I'd like to
We're going good with staff over here, but yeah, we're going all
I'd
right.
like to foreshadow an amendment to the. I don't know whether I'll have to take some guidance on this, but I believe that perhaps this construction certificate shouldn't be issued until the previous DA has actually been completed, because that's otherwise how are we going to.
Yep. Okay. Would you like to word that so that?
Well, I guess I'm asking for some direction on this, is whether that's whether the construction certificate, whether a construction certificate can't be issued until such times as a certificate of occupation is issued for the previous one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if it was a modification or a staging of the development application through another development application, a staged DA, there would be an ability, but as they're a standalone development application, we can't actually link the two DAs together.
So I guess my question is, how would that condition be enforced then?
Through compliance, through you, Mr. Mayor, through compliance. The other 2019 one is a private certifier. So again, it will just be that through council.
Given that the applicant's openness and willingness and spirit to work with council to make sure that we all go on this journey together, I'm pretty sure that matter will be taken care of without too much drama, and thank you for that. So that's pleasing to hear and see. Do we have any, I suppose, for anyone like to speak against? No one spoke against today. Anyone like to speak for as well before I put it? Okay, I'll put that 21-213. Councillors, all those in favour? Against? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, councillors. Okay, so I'll go back now to the council paper and get back into order of business. And the next item's a simple one. Yeah, okay. Item 21-206. Hilltops Council Financial Sustainability and Options Analysis. Councillors, we've had workshops and discussions in regard to this. There's a report there and there's recommendations are there. I will now ask the General Manager to speak to this matter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. As has been circulated to councillors this afternoon, the recommendation has been tweaked, clarified, so that the intent of the original recommendation does come through. This has come through discussions with the relevant local government unions, of which I met with them this morning, and they are satisfied that these A through to F are appropriate motions, particularly for them to be, as part of the consultation process, to consider the options. So I just wanted to highlight that the recommendation that was in originally released has been tweaked. The intent has not been modified. It's just been clarified, so it's clear, and it's clear to the satisfaction, I will say with some thankfulness of working through the unions, that they are satisfied that this does meet the requirements as they have been discussing. So, as I said, councillors, the financial sustainability of council has been an ongoing and pressing issue, and certainly since I started in March 2020. It's only been recently, through the ability of particularly the finance team, to pull together the draft financials for the 30th of June 2021 to the satisfaction of both myself and certainly the auditors, who are still ongoing, to enable the platform to appropriately project out the concerns and where our cash flow may be should some hard decisions not be made and considered. It's not one item, it's a collective of items where all things need to be considered. There's not one lever that will bring Hilltops Council back to a balanced budget and financial sustainability. I will stress that the consideration of the special rate variation. That is a long process in accordance with the integrated planning regime requirements, and it's appropriate that that discussion happen with the new council, given there has to be extensive consultation with the community about those changes. The consultation that I recommend within the report are necessary consultations to maintain financially viable. These are some of the measures that have to be considered and appropriately implemented at the time to make sure that we have enough cash. I think that will do for now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Going that, I would suggest, and I'm pretty sure I'll get a seconder, that given the conversation around this report, that we move into committee council.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Plenary. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Who'd like to push the first button? Councillor Plenary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess a couple of parts to this. It is what it is. It's regrettable. I think it's quite sad, actually, that such a prosperous agricultural area is in this state of affairs, but some of it is not of our doing and some of it is of our doing. Fixing it is the aim of the game. I don't support 30% staff cuts, as was proposed in the original recommendation. It would decimate our workforce. It would decimate morale and numbers. So in the amended recommendation, I think we need to be mindful of what we're trying to achieve. So if it's not there in black and white, I don't think there should be any, in my view, any aim to reduce numbers to that extent. I do believe we need to get them back to the original starting numbers, which will be about 15% reduction. It's pretty clear we're going to need a special rate variation to get ourselves back out of this. It is by and large mismanagement. There's no other way to put it. And I think a lot of it are legacy issues. The thing I won't support is a special rate variation and a reduction in staff numbers and a substantial reduction in services. We've had 2 particularly wet winters, and by and large, most roads in the district are cut up and will need substantial work. Around 68% of rates are paid by rural ratepayers, and I think I've had more phone calls in the last 6 to 8 weeks than I've had in the last 12 years about the state of the rural roads, which, given our current financial position, isn't going to be fixed. Given the rates that those ratepayers pay, and one ratepayer emailed all of us, and I think he only got one response to say he pays $20,000 in rates, and his roads haven't been graded for 8 years. So when we talk about commence discussions with community regarding levels of service within council's policies and financial limitations, that basically means we won't be grading roads and won't be doing some other stuff, and we'll be fixing potholes on an as-needs basis. That's what it means to me. We've got to do better than that. As I said, we are a productive agricultural area. We've seen 2 of the best years that we've ever seen. I do believe we can afford a rate increase across the farming community. I know it is hard. It won't be considered here tonight, but land values have risen substantially. We've done well. There are plenty of people in the towns who haven't done so well in the last few years, particularly due to COVID, and it's going to be particularly tough on them. And I am mindful of that. But it is incumbent on us, and it's more incumbent on the staff to make sure we don't stuff up a second time.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Anyone else who'd got hands in the air? No one wants to talk? Councillor Horton, I'll go to you then. Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, it's time for all councillors to make very hard decisions, to stand up and be counted. No one wants services to be cut, jobs to go, or possible increases in services provided. However, the reality is, unless we make the hard decisions now, just like any business, we'll become bankrupt, and then we'll go into administration. That's the bottom line. I'm certain no one in this chamber wants that to happen. The good news is It's not too late to turn around our financial position. If we support Council's recommendations now, then within 2 to 3 years, I believe our bottom line shall turn from red to black. The alternative is to go into administration. Mr. Mayor, to do this, we must have the right person at the top. I have every confidence in General Manager O'Reilly, who inherited big problems going back to Hilltops administration days, and from his first day, he commenced to address these massive legacies. General Manager Anthony O'Reilly has a wealth of experience in both local government and the private sector. He's worked with Chartered Accountants Ernst & Young for 3 years, 7 years with Campbell Page Employment Services, where he headed up the finance department, and 8 years with Eurobodalla Shire Council, where he is head of finances and acted as the general manager when required. Mr. Mayor, why am I telling you this? I want all to know that I fully believe we have the right man at the top, and that is so important to get out of this mess. We have got the right man at the top, in my view. We are in very good hands and have a general manager who will turn Hilltop's financial concerns around. Let's all give him our full support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. The floor's open to anyone who'd like to speak. Just indicate. Councillor Walker.
If I may, I'll just make a short observation, and I endorse a lot of what Councillor Horton just covered, except the period of administration gave us the problem that we've got. And I commend the current GM for addressing this legacy head on, and I thank him very much. But what hasn't been addressed at all is we just saw had a discussion in a previous recommendation about referring things to the state, and in this case, a lot of this has been guided by state authorities, state bureaucrats, and whatnot. And it's a state that said we were going to be great in this period of time, and we've been following their recommendations all the way through. And in fact, if we follow them and don't act independently, like I would have seen in the previous resolution, we'll continue to flounder around and wonder why we're in debt. There is hard decisions to be made, and again, I commend the General Manager for addressing these issues head on. But I still wonder why state authorities haven't been approached to answer why we're in the position we are.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. I'll go around. Councillor Manchester, go that way. Sorry, Councillor Armstrong, I'll come back to you next.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I endorse the comments that Councillor Flannery made and Councillor Walker have made. I don't think there's any doubt that the general managers can handle the job. I think there's a big job ahead of him, and I'd like to see, because this council. Well, we'll see what depends what happens with the election, but there's going to be a whole new council in January, which makes it quite difficult for the general manager to take this forward. This second recommendation, I think, goes a long way towards that. The first one that went out with the business paper with the mayor, I thought made it very difficult to take it ahead. But with this recommendation, I think a special rate review is a hard one to stomach, especially for someone like myself. But if it needs to be done, we need to do it. But I think we need to look, and a report needs to go to the new council of how we've got to the situation we're in. I think you can't fix it unless you know where you went wrong to start off with. That's what I said at the workshop. If we don't fix the hole will still be there, and we won't be able to move forward. We need to look at a review of all services and see what needs to be improved in the road grading, the gravel, even the services around the three towns. We need to look at the whole overview, the whole lot of what we do with our rate dollars, and obviously our other funding dollars, but especially our rate dollars. I think if we use them wisely and we go out to the public with open views, and they'll be receptive to what we're trying to explain to them about a special rate review and why we need it. If we don't do it the right way, we won't get their confidence.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Councillor, I said I'd go to Councillor Armstrong. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought you might have gone to the table, but look, I concur with the statements of fellow councillors. I guess I've been banging on for quite a while. I've seen this coming, and it's finally arrived. The potential austerity measures in there will not be sufficient to save council. We can sit here and look at each other and hope that it is, but it won't be. And the only way forward for us is going to be a special rate variation.
Councillor Armstrong's
would you mind explaining what you mean by the austerity measures?
The saving of money, the reduction, the plugging of the hole that Councillor Manchester referred to. Certainly, we need to be very careful with our dollars, and those austerity measures, such as the reduction or the consideration of the use of consultants and contractors to maximise internal efficiencies and contain costs, is a classic example. There will be some works where contractors will be a better buy for council in doing it themselves, and there'll be plenty of circumstances where they won't be. Those decisions will need to be made based upon the assessments of the general manager and the relevant staff members. But certainly a special rate variation is the only way that we're going to generate the volume of dollars that we're going to need to drive the council out of the hole it's in. And whilst it pains me greatly to have to say it, but I really think that if there's any way that we could apply for a special rate variation now, we should do it, because at least we would then be giving the new council an opportunity to either say yes or no. But to do nothing, we potentially deprive the incoming council of that opportunity. That doesn't sit very easily with me, because it doesn't seem particularly fair. I take on board the issues in regards to service levels, but the reality of it is service levels are going to have to be modified, because we simply can't afford to provide those services that we're providing at the levels we're providing them. We will need to rationalise the services and determine a priority for services. Now, there's an old adage that council's core business are roads, rates and rubbish. Certainly the issue of roads is a big one for us, and I wish to commend the Director of Infrastructure and her asset team for the excellent work that's been produced in regards to the unsealed roads maintenance program and the assessment of the conditions of those roads. It is absolutely outstanding, and it provides council with what I believe is justification for its maintenance budget, and also the capital works for it. So we need more work of that style, and council needs to develop its budgets and stick to them. Without doing that, then we're not going to get anywhere at all. The whole we will be effectively, or the council of the day will effectively be making the whole. But in terms of the special rate variation, as I said, I think that if there was any way that we could facilitate that discussion earlier, then we should explore that, to at least give the incoming council the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor General Manager.
Through Mr. Mayor, just raising the point, as I highlighted, I'm very concerned that we would fail at the first hurdle in relation to notifying the state that IPART, that we would apply for a special rate variation, because we have not done that work. To be fair to the community, and dare I say you, the councillors, this body of work really was presented to you only in detail the 6th of October with the detail. Certainly that has a discussion with the community. So I'm not sure that we would meet that criteria. Even if we were to meet that criteria, my understanding of the timeline would be if this council was to resolve to notify the state of our intent for an SRP, there would be a substantial amount of work to pull together the community consultation and scenarios, etc. we have done some analytical type work in relation to, and certainly I talk about the magnitude of the SRVs based upon certain reductions in staffing levels, and as appropriately, wordsmith for the intent, working with the unions and staff to consider those options is a clear way forward. The maximum of the 30%, as highlighted by Councillor Flannery, is not noted there. Really, it is back to basics in relation to what can be done in that space. The new council, now I'm just going through just so people understand, the election is on the 4th of December. We've been advised that it will only be, ordained or sanctioned, whatever the appropriate word is, anywhere up to the 21st to the 23rd of December, 2 days before Christmas. Council closes between Christmas and the New Year, which is why I had the council meetings. Although you're tying the new council, it is legislatively required that within 3 weeks of the notification of the elections, you need to elect a mayor, because we elect a mayor from the councillors. You need to take your oath, and you need to determine whether or not you will back count if in that 18 months a councillor was to leave for whatever reason. That's a little bit detailed. However, given that is the optic, that the first time we will essentially meet, councillors will meet me, is that in January, where it's been sanctioned just before Christmas. We do want to have an induction period very, very soon thereafter, so that potentially in mid-January. We would then be asking the new council. I know there is a mix of views on how many councillors will be here, but hypothetically speaking, let's say half councillors don't put up their hand and come back. There's potentially 5, 6, 7 new councillors, depending on the way the community votes. We'd be asking those 7 new councillors within short, sharp shift between mid-January to the lodgement time, sometime in February, to apply for a special variation of that magnitude. I'm just painting the picture of that's what we would be asking to do should we progress. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that would be the challenge, not only for you to put that. Your point is noted, however, and certainly the projections that were presented to you, or the scenarios presented to you, and certainly the scenarios presented in the paper, are formed on the basis of an SRV not being notification of an application for an SRV in this term of council, but that notification be the following year. So the projections within given is the first time any money would come through, should it all go through the process, would be the 23-24 financial year, given the timing it takes for the process. In some ways, that loads up the magnitude, given the financial circumstance, on how we must address the outflow of cash expenditure versus how much cash revenue we are coming in. And that's where I always talk about the timing of it. I'm in your hands, councillors. That was just by way of explanation of the challenges that I know are on your mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I personally wouldn't be in favour of encumbering a brand new council, in the first month with an SRV, because I think, you also have to see the dynamics of the new council and how they work, and it should be their decision. I don't believe we should be deciding for them. I think in the interim, we should pare back our operations so we are doing roads, rates and rubbish, like the real essentials. Make sure that we are applying fees and charges where in the past they haven't been applied. Make sure that people are paying for services that are rendered. Look at our depreciation bill. look at our assets and if there's a feasible sale of assets that will buy us some cash. I mean, you know, we could probably think of 20 assets that you could put for sale and in 20 years' time they'll still be for sale. So we probably need to look at really realistic short-term assets that will inject that cash flow to keep the council going. In terms of reduction of services, I mean, I agree with Councillor Flannery, particularly roads. I mean, God, if they're much more reduced, we'll have to walk anyway. We need to keep a level of service that is acceptable. However, there may be other services. But I think we've got to keep roads. We've got, you know, they're just essential with the huge number of kilometres we have. Can we increase our private works with Transport New South Wales? I mean, they're a good generator of money. How much can we put our staff out there to do private works? Can we ask the community, do they want private works with graders, bulldozers? We've got the staff, we've got the equipment. How much can we generate with private works? That will only be an interim measure. They won't, you know, they won't solve the problem, but what they will do is inject that quick cash flow. Let's make sure we dot the I's and cross the T's in terms of whatever services we do, people pay for. Not leave it hanging or maybe people pay for, but actually get that revenue. I'd like to see modelling. Contracts, contracts and what's the other thing? Consultants. Can we model what we could save if we don't use them on particular projects so that we've got an idea, a concrete figure that we can work towards, as opposed to just speculating, you know, even moving staff from the Harden and BOOROWA offices. What's it going to cost to relocate them? You know, what sort of works have to be done?
Do you want to address any of that?
Look, certainly there's a few questions there. Look, I know it's been mentioned about the depreciation bill. Any adjustment that we do within depreciation is not cash at the end of the day. So that's a function of it. As I articulated in the workshop, it's not something that we should ignore, and we should do some work in that. Just in relation to the burdening of the SRV type part with the new council, should there be any support of Councillor Armstrong's motion, as we should say we're going to put in for one, the new council will say yay or nay to it. Should we not put in November, that decision is actually taken away from council, the new council, so they can't make a decision. Should they be of a mind to say, oh no, look, we need to do it, they cannot do that because this council has not put one in. So just clarifying that, we're taking away the choice from them putting one forward. They can always say, no, we need more time. We go back to the process. The third one in about the movement between the Harden and BOOROWA sites, certainly, as I've discussed before, there is a legislative requirement, as far as reasonably practical, to keep the numbers for any council, any amalgamated council with less than 5,000 population. Both the Harden Council and BOOROWA Council fit that bill to maintain the pre-existing levels. So that is. But
is that buildings? Like, is that facilities, or is it numbers of people? It's numbers of people.
It's people within the areas. Because they don't want ghost towns. That's simply saying. So that is certainly a consideration, and that's certainly where council needs to work closely with the unions. And it was a great conversation today with the unions about the ways forward. So I just wanted to clarify those three parts. Anyway, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We've gone around that. We'll start around this one. Councillor Wallace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few questions to the General Manager through you. First questions relate to depreciation. It says there on page 27 of the business paper that depreciation rates have been adjusted to those figures provided. How does that work? Is council simply able to pick its depreciation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, The depreciation rates, usually they're done independently, as in we have someone assess the useful life of an asset and they determine the depreciation rate. The depreciation rates there, talking about the 7%, 3%, etc., that's on the basis of understanding of when the capital works that are in train are going to hit. And we're talking about some $80 million worth of work. So we're anticipating to allow, so you see a true bottom line from an accounting standards point of view. That's what that number is, nothing else.
So it's a future thing.
That's a future thing, yes.
Yeah, so I make my point now that I made at the previous briefing or workshop or whatever we called it. With all our neighbouring councils, our depreciation rate on assets is up to 250% higher than some of our neighbouring councils. So it just, if you equate the asset value, our depreciation is 2.8%, and some of our neighbouring councils get as low as 1.1%. So I think we need to do some work there on our rate of depreciation. I'm not talking about the value of the assets, but the rate of depreciation. And I suppose my next question into that is, because I keep being told that we don't have cash and depreciation won't play into that anyway, what is the cash deficit forecast for this financial year?
What I will talk to is the cash position as at the 30th of June 2021 is a deficit in unrestricted cash of 3.8 million. Through the cash flows of when the rates come in, etc., that approaches zero, but then once that hit of rates, etc., dry off, we then start to go back into negative. It is borderline zero. That's our cash position, unrestricted cash.
So what's the projection on an annual basis? How much short of cash are we compared? How much more do we spend than we receive in cash terms?
On the basis of the prior year, between 3 and 3.5 million, more cash goes out than comes in unrestricted cash. I make that distinction from unrestricted cash to internally restricted cash versus the externally restricted cash, which is where somewhere we do not want to go to.
Okay, thank you.
That's right.
My final point, which I've made before, is that I will never support a special rate variation. And in this matter, I quote the late Kerry Packer, who, when asked about why if he tried to minimise tax, he said, of course he did, because he thinks he can spend his money far better than others.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, for that. Yep. Councillor Stadmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just start with part A. It's a bit of a given, I believe, because the General Manager should implement any further recruitment that isn't for essential positions. We're all pretty wary now of the use of consultants and what they've cost. We don't know the exact cost, even though on numerous occasions over the last 4 years we've asked what consultants have cost. Maybe they're a necessary evil. Maybe we should be doing more in-house. I'm a little bit unsure as to what happened on Friday and why we've had a change with point C, where we're now engaging with the relevant unions in clause 41. So I'll ask the General Manager to answer what happened on Friday once I finish here. We can commence discussion with the community regarding levels of service within Council's policies and financial limitations, but I don't think we're going to get a very good response as to them wanting services to lower further than they already are. Councillor O'Connor highlighted the state of the roads at the moment, which continue to deteriorate and will continue to deteriorate. We've asked for a little while for a list of assets. I'm not necessarily going to support the divestment of these assets, but it would be great to actually know what we do own, what we don't own, and what the market value of those are. And much like Councillor Wallace to my right, I won't be supporting a special rate variation. I'd actually like to see the matter deferred to February. I don't think there's much to be lost if we defer to February and allow a new council to own this. And set their agenda for the next term of council. So if the General Manager can just explain what occurred Friday and where we are now in regards to matter C, please.
Through you, Mr Mayor, as I articulated at the beginning of the meeting, there was some concern about the intent and clarity of the marks as with the staff cost reduction and total council wages, as per the modelling was done on a 15 to 30% reduction of the employment cost, the total wages cost. It was not attached to the number of staff per se, so there was some confusion about the clarity of that. In relation to the cost reduction. So through the discussion, as I said, with the unions today, they said the process should be just a discussion about the reduction in total employment costs without any figure. So no cap, no floor, nothing. It's just let's look at what we've got, and I welcome their involvement. So they asked for clarity around some things. They interpreted the original motions in a certain way, which was not intended, and after discussion and making sure that we were on the same page, certainly the intent of the motions that I put forward and here, C does not preclude a cost reduction equivalent up to 30% of total council wages. It allows that discussion as appropriate, and as I said I had the opportunity to talk with Graham Kelly today, and that was a great opportunity, and I welcome the opportunity to work with the councillors in this regard.
Just one more question, please, Mr General Manager. I was at a race meeting in Cooter on Friday covering the sport, and I got a phone call from a member of the general public detailing to me that a council meeting was being held with all the staff. Was that true, and why weren't councillors informed? I would have liked to have known if there was a large-scale council meeting going on with the entire workforce.
Operational, but I'll hand it to you, Mr General Manager.
Okay, through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, it is operational. The purpose of the all-staff meeting on Friday was to inform staff of the report that was coming to you today and the content of that. I did explain to them, and I'm happy to share the video that I did for that meeting with you for the content. There's nothing new in that that you will not have heard at the workshop or gleaned from the report. There certainly will be a staff meeting tomorrow following the outcome of this meeting, where I'll inform staff and the relevant local government unions have been invited to that meeting, but that will be conveying what is discussed here tonight, nothing new. Thank you, Councillor Stagmiller.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I've run out of initials, so it's around to me. One tick less. I'm sorry. My deepest apologies, Councillor Ruffles. I am so sorry.
That's okay.
No, it's
Thank
not
you.
really, but
Thank you,
yeah,
Mr Mayor. I don't take it personal. I just have a few questions. At the moment, we've skirted around I feel about the effect on staff and on staffing, and I think we're being cold about it, but we've also got to look at the people that it will affect. I presume that, well, two things. If, like Councillor before me, I might go through it. In B, when we minimise the use of consultants and contractors, to my mind, in part the use has been because there has been the lack of staff or the lack of trained staff. Would I be in that? So we've got to be really careful when we say that, where we minimise.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Look, the review is to minimise the use, not exclude.
Yeah.
There was a circumstance where there was an engineering role where we had tried 4 times to recruit someone and was unsuccessful, but that role was essential. 5th time we've been very lucky to engage someone who appears to be working very well in that role. But during that time, we had to pay a premium to have someone in that role. So over time, just through the knowledge of consultants that have come close to the general manager, they have reduced. But I certainly think it's appropriate that we do look specifically at those rates. And certainly I'll go back to the wording with where I said a review of consultants and contractors. That was misinterpreted as to replace staff with consultants and contractors, and that was never the intent. It was always about reducing our reliance upon those, and that's a broader, as you touched on it, it's a broader cultural type issue. Is we want to attract, we want to recruit, we want to remunerate appropriately, and we want to retain all of from top to bottom, from bottom to top. Everyone's plays a role, and if they're engaged to a role. So, as I've intimated before, given the financial position, that has been challenging, where we've not been able to replace and support staff in a way in which they would like. However, that's been some of the decisions that's in the mix. Sorry, Councillor.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. And I presume I had a query about when we're looking at staff cuts, has any modelling been done as to where the cuts will come? But I presume that would be part of that formal consultation process, would it? With the unions?
That's correct, Councillor. Again, the ambit of what we talked about and the options, it was the high-level financial data, and that's part of the consultation process, the work change process. That has to be consideration on what we need to do, which is why that's any levers that we pull in that regard. We want to be able to have that discussion and inform people of this is where we're going with that. This is the level of service. I've heard loud and clear that roads is something that we want to continue to work at a high level, and we need to look at what other levels.
Yeah, and I suppose part of my concern, well, not, yes, it is a concern, I would say, with staff cuts. My concern is that we might lose more staff than we want to, just because of the overloading of the staff with the work that is involved. I know on Monday night, for example, there was an example, and I can understand cutting the numbers. I agree with that, and I can also understand skilling up. That's all part of it, but we've also got to be concerned that we don't overload, and that's where I say that I have concerns, or I would like to see some modelling of where those cuts can be made and how sustainable departments would be with certain cuts.
Yeah, so certainly we start from the principle of what is the minimum statutory requirement that we must fulfil as a local government agency. That is what we must staff at, and we must look at the service levels. To avoid burnout or overburdening staff, we have to match what we can afford to a service level. That's the balancing act, so that we can't just reduce total employee wages and expect everything to stay the same. There is a consequence of that.
Of course there is. I think what I'm saying too is that within certain departments, you just have to make sure that I suppose they can function effectively. That's my concern. The next one, and the services, certainly there's the roads and that sort of thing, but rubbish hasn't come into it, and I can see certainly with waste and garbage collection and that sort of thing, there are different options. I know that some councils are pursuing as far as regular garbage collection and all that sort of stuff, and I know that we touched on that. And the assets, I'd really like to see that list of in that confidential report of what assets are suitable, and I think that comes into what is suitable and what the community will accept. because we are a community-based corporation in a sense, so we've got to really consider what the community says. And also, when on page 31, when you're talking about sale and leaseback, opportunity to move towards a business model utilising operating leases, does that mean, I presume, does that include leasing vehicles rather than owning, but also leasing of machinery to operators so that then you come back? Has that model been used before at different times?
Look, I'm not sure from strike. Yeah, so Councillor Flannery has said that
in Harden Shire, wasn't it?
In Harden, potentially Hilltops, but look, certainly the 3 points that I've just heard then, Councillor. Waste, we now have a waste strategy, and that will frame the discussion with the community. Obviously, ultimately, where you want to be with waste is as a minimum cost recovery, certainly for domestic collection. And certainly, but with waste, there should be the availability to generate a surplus, because the maintenance of the long-term asset is you need to build up reserves so that you can replace that asset when the space has been utilised. In relation to the assets, it is appropriate that whether it be this council or the new council, any sale of assets, it must come before council for your consideration as part of a confidential report. Confidential report because obviously there'll be commercial aspects about what is expected purchase price, what advice we may have from real estate agents, etc. But certainly we want to identify assets suitable for that as part of the strategy. There's still work to do.
So when can we expect that list to be available for consideration?
I'll just take that on notice at this point. At this point, we still have to work. We're still working through the identification of the assets that we've done over time. We have done some work in that regard, but there's more work to be done, and we have to identify those assets that would have value, that would fit for purpose, that are underutilised assets as well.
Are we looking at sort of halfway through next year?
No, certainly. No, I'd certainly want, I'd certainly like to see the identification of, a suite of assets, certainly within, 3 months, certainly to assist with that cash position. Sorry, just on the final one, the sale and the lease back to, that was an option in relation to a consideration, and certainly, yes, anything to do with motor vehicles, etc., but certainly also the larger plant and equipment. Certainly you can consider that, and certainly with the interest rates, that's something that we can consider. You have to balance, the function of the asset and the utility of the asset. If we're using that asset, 100% of the time, it may be better to own it. But if you're not utilising it to that level, certainly a sale and leaseback arrangement.
And my last question, and I promise it's my last question. It's the special rate variation. Am I right in saying that it has to be targeted? So how will it be phrased sort of for presentation to?
Look, the special rate variation obviously attaches to general rates, and certainly there is a suite of things that we need to do that we do not have money for. Case in point, our road network is in dire need of an injection, and a special rate variation that any money raised goes towards the rehabilitation of roads.
So
that would be a very, very worthy cause.
So that, and then that would mean that the money saved from that could then.
Well, it's not so much the money saved because it's in addition to, but using roads as an example, given weather events, suddenly a road that would only need to be graded once every quarter or some such, suddenly is damaged, suddenly needs much more work. And so at many roads that we've been unable to maintain and certainly as Councillor Flannery has articulated, that's widespread across the Shire, and certainly that's an area that we would look at. I'm not saying that's what we would do within a special rate variation, and that's a discussion that we would need to have. But there's some that's certainly an option to consider in that space.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for.
Thank you, Councillor
your
Rolls.
patience.
Just one further question in regard to
I'm just
an
going to
item that Councillor Rolls has raised in regard to the sale of assets. As Council no doubt aware, all council properties have to be classified as either operational or community, and where those assets are classified as community assets, councils doesn't have the ability to just run out and bang it up for sale. There's a process that has to be followed. So perhaps you may that process. I guess I'd like you to elucidate upon, and also to just I'd like to bring to council's attention that this is a slow process, and you don't. It's not. There's no quick sugar hit on the sale of assets if you've got to change the classification. But please, Mr. General Manager.
Look, certainly, very good point, Councillor Armstrong. As I said, identified assets suitable for divestment. There may be an asset that is a community asset that is, for whatever reason, underutilised, not utilised, that may be repurposed. However, as a community asset, there is an extensive process of which you have to consult with the community about changing it from a community asset, community basis, to an operational asset. Operational assets, it's just a decision of council to sell or not to sell. But you're right. Community assets, I suppose it would have to be a very attractive proposition to repurpose it from a community to an operational, and you would do that on the basis of operational would be it's on sale, far outweighs whatever the community use is. However, you have to be very, very mindful of that. And I must say, in my 9 and a bit years, I have not seen a community asset converted to an operational.
My understanding is the only way that can be done is either through a planning instrument or by agreement by the relative minister.
As I say, it's a very difficult process, and I will take that on. I'll take that on notice. Yeah, I'm aware of a difficult process. What I'd be looking for is operational assets that are underutilised in the first instance. I want to preclude other assets in the longer term, but I think it was you, Councillor, that it is the sale of any asset for the purpose of a cash injection. We have to be very, very mindful. It's sort of like a sugar hit. Once it's gone, it's gone. So it's the part of the asset is we immediately identify some things to, so we can, we're waving, not drowning. You don't want to be drowning, not waving. In that part, and that's part of, as I said, this is a mix of things, effectively to buy us enough time to put the right strategies in place to make the right structural changes, so that Hilltops Council can be all that can be, and go forward and be financially sustainable. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you for that. Okay, and again, my apologies for jumping the line. I feel bad now, but I've got a few things to say. The first thing I'm going to comment on, it was just the point was touched on, was sale of assets. Very important that speculation doesn't happen in regard to any of our assets that we might be looking at selling early. There was a learned gentleman on the radio a couple of days ago who made speculation. His comments were that silence creates suspicion and doubt. Well, speculation creates panic and nervous people. He mentioned one building. I had people who operate out of that building call me with great concerns today, for me to have to tell them that no, that was something said by that learned gentleman that isn't on council or involved with council. And I'll repeat that statement tomorrow on radio myself. So it's very dangerous to start speculating about what might be sold and what might be not, because there's a lot of community people using those assets that become very nervous. And the community is probably nervous enough, given the item that we're talking about at the moment. So something that I'd like to set out from the start is I'd like to commend and congratulate the current staff and executive the Hilltops Council has to bring us to the position where we are, where this report comes to us so we can have some faith and hopefully see a way out of it. The commentary I hear, and again from the learned gentleman, is councillors are responsible. Yes, we are. How did they not know this before? How come it's taken this long to get there? I'll repeat something that's been said. The financials are reported every year, albeit 10 months late, 2 years in a row from prior history of our council. Those financial figures are out there for the public every year to look at. Now, the first time anyone mentioned a combined deficit of $45 million was Councillor Armstrong in a councillor column. It is now the most used term I've heard in our district. It is ridiculous. Those figures are out there for the public to see. Did we know about them? Little history. And my comment around it is, and I've said it before, how did we get here? We got here because people were appointed to positions who didn't have the skill set to fill those positions. Then other people were employed by them people who also didn't have the skill set. Unfortunately, whether it was unfortunate or they didn't receive the proper training or what happened, how did this get so far? We were elected in 2017, I think, from memory, and I won't be quoted on this, but I'll double check it later. The financials for 17-18 came to us in about May or March of the following year in 19. The financials for 19-20 came to us early 21. And don't anybody ever say, weren't you asking the question of what was going on? I believe every council was. I know I was. Show me the numbers, show me the figures, and explain to me why we are bleeding cash at this rate. You can ask, and I did, and I know other councillors did, the ARIC group did, and we kept getting told, we'll get it to you, we'll get it to you, we'll get it to you. What do? You get agitated, you ask the question more often, and ultimately, unfortunately, for some, those people that didn't have the skill set level that was necessary are no longer with the organisation. Now, that's as politely as I'm prepared to put anything. So let's move on. We appoint another general manager. He's sitting beside me. And I'm not big on giving raps to a lot of people. But if you have a look what's happened since he joined our organisation, it speaks for itself. Our financials will be lodged in time in the statutory requirements this year. That in itself, and again I will mention the CFO, who's not here tonight, Courtney, for the great work that she did for our organisation. It is a tremendous credit to her ability. So here we are ready to present. Not only are we ready to present, the budget deficit, everyone listening, deficit has been reduced by $4.7 million in the period when the General Manager said they would start to capitalise wages and implement a few other measures. It was widely reported in newspapers and politicians' columns where we rated with other councillors in our performance, our financial performance. And yeah, it didn't look pretty. I had phone calls from everywhere, and I said, no, it is what it is. I would ask everyone, and I've got the documentation kept, that in 12 months' time to have a look at where them positions are and where our council is a way different outlook than what we've been in. Having said that, there's a lot of work to be done, and that's why this matter is on the table in front of us right now. We have come through some horrific legacy issues, and some are still there. We need to address them, and we need to address them quick. Talk about staff, cutbacks, you know, that breaks everyone's heart. The simple fact of the matter is, but we're currently running with 42, 43 positions more on Hilltops Council than we were when we were 3 single councils. Now, I got on board with the people who said amalgamation would be great, and you could see the reductions, and you wouldn't need this, and you wouldn't have to double up here, and you wouldn't need that. There would be efficiencies. Councillor Stadmiller will be very pleased to hear me say it. They haven't been achieved. They didn't happen. That's not because of amalgamation. That's because of how amalgamation was handled. I want to make that clear to everyone. It's not the word amalgamation in that process, it's how it was handled. The first year of administration, there was a $16.5 million deficit. $20 million thrown to us by the state government, and they still managed to burn $1 million cash in reserves. Forgive me. So To be sitting here now with 42 or 43 more workforce than what we had when we started, something definitely needs to be addressed. That number equates roughly to 15%, I think, just in round figures. I'd like to make another point of clarification with the fact that the villages under the towns, under 5,000 people and staff numbers need to be kept where practically possible the same. I don't want anyone in the young community to be thinking that those 40, if whatever number of staff is reduced, will be all coming out of young, because that won't happen. So it needs to be fine-tuned and adjusted by the people we put in charge as the general manager and the executives to work out their structures and how they're going to handle those structures. Private works was mentioned earlier on. Part of the difficulty in the previous 3 years was through the people we had running our organisation, we lost contact with the state agencies because some work we did wasn't any good. We couldn't get our reports. We couldn't communicate with them state agencies. So what do, them state agencies? They drop you off. They don't want to deal with you. I can now confidently and honestly say that every state agency has been in contact and met regularly with our general manager and myself. Works for RMS will pick up because of that relationship's been repaired, and that will also help our bottom line immensely. That's something that doesn't happen overnight, and I know the general manager and his staff have worked on very, very hard. User fees and charges, it was mentioned about let's collect them. Great point. They were in our financial accounts, users and charge fees, but you know what? Again, those people that are no longer with this organisation, they didn't charge anyone. Oh, whoops. So then on comes COVID and everyone looks for relief. Well, I'm sorry, you've had relief because no one's been charging you previously, so the relief's been there. The state government has been throwing out bundles of money, and so they should, for COVID-affected people. But we still get it local government. We need your help. I hope after tonight the community realises that we're just not real nasty people and say no to something to do. The reason that some of the assistance cannot be provided or services is we don't have financial capability to do it. The fact is, if nothing happens in 12 to 18 months, the cash is gone. If the general manager has to report tomorrow that we haven't decided to take some strategies on board to address the manner of where we are with our financial stability and sustainability, he will be under no other choice but to report to OLG the financial situation of council in full. And then it will be up to OLG and ministers of the state to decide the fate of our council. We need to take our fate in our hands and implement with the unions, as been pointed out, a number of these triggers. It's no good just having one trigger. It needs to be a combination of these triggers to slowly claw us back out of where we are. As was spoken about before, amalgamation, be smarter with what we've got. Well, that hasn't worked, but it's been turned around. So we need to work on that very, very hard as a council. That's probably enough on me in regard to the general picture from my point of view that I've taken on board, and I'll address matters tomorrow on radio about how I could get to this stage. As I've explained to you, it's very easy when it happens like it happened, and here we are, and we know where it is. So look, councillors, we're in committee. I don't think I've got to move in a second. First, we'll do that when we get out of committee, but I'll go up. There's other people who would like to say something before we come out of committee. But yeah, I have reservations about staff numbers. I have reservations about SRV, but I also had a reality check. And as I said, I believe we need to implement small parts of all these levers. And I think the presentation was given to us a while back. And I think option 5, I ticked a few times. It sat pretty well with me, SRV and 15% reduction in efficiencies. So that's enough from me. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a few things I didn't raise earlier, and I think there's one elephant in the room, and it's been in the room since day one, and that's Technology One. It has been an absolute disaster.
Legacy, yep.
If to me, when people ask me what's gone wrong, I say we had a program that not one single employee knew how to use when we started. Harden had a program called Civica that all the Harden staff knew how to use. Other staff from other offices knew how to use by virtue of previous history. We spent a fortune on it. It has cost us time in getting our budgets. We haven't known where our budgets are up to. we still often don't know where specific budgets are up to. I don't know how many times I've been in the supermarket in Harden or Young and I've had staff say to me, I say, oh, how's it going, Bozo? And they say, good. But we got pulled up 2 days ago because we got told, they think they've got a week's work in front of them and got told they're up to budget. It is a disaster. If we can't use it properly, get rid of it. Use the SRV to get a program that is simple and easy to use and is going to help us going forward. Now, I don't use it. I haven't got a clue, but I did say on day one when we got told how good it was, how sophisticated it was, I said, it sounds so sophisticated, no one will be able to use it. I've been through farm programs that they can tell you which sheep is in which paddock. It lasts about 2 days, no one can use it, and you go back to your old notebook. And I'll tell you, the old notebook works pretty damn well. So keep it simple, and if we need to use that SRV for anything, my number one will be to get rid of technology one. It'll be the best decision we could ever make. Productivity to me is a real key. I think we need to focus on what we're achieving. And whilst I missed the last meeting of the Asset Management Committee, real gains have been made there, and I think that will drive some efficiency gains. If we know what the assets are, we know what we're achieving, I think there's, look, I just can't commend that group and Grant in particular highly enough. We should start leasing machinery tomorrow. You can ring any bank anywhere and get a quote on machinery leasing. It's not about selling machinery. It's about leasing it and not owning it. You should never own a depreciating asset. We are short of cash. So the annual inflation rate now is, as of today, about 3%, running at 1.8%. You can borrow money at 3%. You have got assets depreciating at about 18% and we own them. It is stupid. We should be leasing them at very low interest rates and utilising them as they should be used. So we should not have cash tied up, and I've been banging on it since day one on Harden Shire. Why do we own $3 to $4 million worth of plant and equipment? There wouldn't be a farm, a mining company, anyone that owns their assets, and yet we own assets that depreciate. Every day they lose money, yet we've got cash tied up in them. It is stupid. It's poor management. We should be engaging with key staff. There are key staff in our operational workshops, and they will tell you what's, by and large, for want of a better way of putting it, going wrong. One of the issues they are struggling with is there are a lot of juniors and they lack middle management to split them into second and third crews. We've just got to actually face a bit of reality. You can have 12 juniors, for want of a better way of putting it, in a workshop. If they can't be split into groups of 2 or 3 and managed efficiently, well then you're losing money, hand over fist. And I really think it's great to engage with unions. Of course we've got to engage with unions, but go and speak to the foreman and ask them where they're struggling. I think you'll make more gains there. Grants have been a real problem for us. It's tied up our workforce. We haven't known what we're doing. If we're going to do grants, they've got to be meaningful grants. I think moving forward, to me, we need to present a council that people want to live in. I don't think we should get overly carried away with where the staff reductions, if you want to put it that way, are. There are plenty of people that live in Harden and BOOROWA and work in Young and vice versa, but we do want to have a township and village that people are happy to live in and work in, and we don't want to turn them into ghost towns. But I think we need, at the end of this process, to have good roads, good staff and a good attitude. And there are positive ways we can achieve it, and there are negative ways. It would be great if we don't need a SRV, but I think the sooner we get ourselves out of this hole. But at the end of the day, we need to know what we're doing, and that is about developing a strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery, and I concur with a lot of your points there. So, councillors...
Can I ask one more question?
Yep,
sorry.
Yes, sure.
Can we possibly vote on these A to F separately? I know it's pain.
We can do anything if someone moves it from the floor.
Oh, I'd love to move that from the floor.
Well, I'll leave it when we come back out of committee, councillor. I just don't know.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I foreshadow an amendment now?
I thought so. Councillor Armstrong.
Look, I believe that if we don't adopt the full suite of these things, then we are not serious about it. playing around the edges isn't going to achieve anything. We need to have a strategy. We need to employ that strategy, and we need to have the bottle to stick to it. I certainly hope that the next council has enough bottle to stick to it as well. But I think if we can't lead by example now, we all recognise the problems, the difficulties and the disabilities. We need to lead by example and give the next council a solid footing rather than no footing at all.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. On that note, I'd ask that someone move we come out of committee. Councillor Flannery, second to Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour? Councillors, on that, thank you very much for the input from everyone. Greatly appreciated, and a frank discussion that I hope all our viewers took on board and made their notes, and there will be a follow-up interview with the local radio station and myself at 8 o'clock in the morning to inform of council's decisions and thoughts and reply to some statements made. So on that note, I had a mover and a seconder, and the recommendations there with 6 dot points. Would the mover like to speak to it?
So we didn't have a mover and a seconder.
I'll move that one.
So we just come out of committee, sorry.
Yeah.
Moved Councillor Armstrong, sorry. Seconded Councillor Manchester, thank you. The mover and seconder before was to come out of committee. So it's moved and seconded. If the mover feels that he would like to talk to it again or spoke to it before, let me know. Reserve the right, thank you. Anyone like to speak against the recommendation? No. Someone else would like to speak for in regards to council?
Mr Mayor. As part of the immediately identify assets suitable for divestment purposes, would that include the immediate sale and lease back of equipment? And look, I don't want to get carried away on this. You ring up a bank and say, these are the equipment. Can you give me a price on it? It's not about actually selling them. It's about refinancing them.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Certainly assets suitable for divestment purposes. I believe a sale and leaseback is a divestment purpose. I would encapsulate that within that and bring it back to council from a financing decision, if not to make the decision, but certainly to inform you on what opportunities are there.
Thank you very much for that. That satisfies that answer. Thank you, Councillor Flannery, for that. So given that, do we have any other questions in regard to any of them, the discussions we've had around the room? If not, I'm happy to put the recommendations there. All those in favour? Aye. Councillor Walker, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Ingram, Councillor Horton, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Rolls. Thank you. Those against? It's Councillor Wallace, Councillor Stadmiller and Councillor O'Connor. The recommendation is carried. Once again, thank you, councillors, for your input and your patience in regard to that item, and again, thank you to staff. Brings me to item 21-207. I'm on the right page, yep. Preparation of our 2021 financial statements, and as I said, they're ready to be handed in the statutory timeline.
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor, thank you. A second to Councillor Rolls, thank you. That one up there. Any questions in regard to that? If not, I'll put that recommendation. All those councillors in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 21-208. There's that word. Cash and investment report. And the recommendation is there, council. Need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Armstrong. Second to Councillor Manchester, thank you. Any questions? All those in favour? Thank you. 21-209, the outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors reports. And councillors, this is something that staff were asked to work on very hard, and some pleasing results. The report's there in the recommendation. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Manchester. Councillor Armstrong, thank you. Any questions in regard to that?
The question relates to outstanding rates. We have a sale of land for unpaid rates proceedings. Can we have a report next month detailing the progress on those proceedings, please?
Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not. I'll put that item. All those in favour? All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 21-210, the customer service policy. The There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation to endorse the draft Hilltops Council Customer Service Policy. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Armstrong moved, Councillor Horton seconded. Any questions in regard to Councillor Flannery?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Look, commend those involved for getting this up. I would like to see on page 77 when it says purposes, scope, objectives, dot point 2 to provide guidance to councillors, staff and customers in relation to the standards of service.
What
67, sorry. To provide guidance to councillor, staff and customers. Look, I don't mean to be rude about this, but the main issue, I think the whole purpose of the customer service policy, we want to know we've got one. We want staff to know they understand there is one. So to the extent there's technicality, I think that should provide guidance to staff and councillors about what is expected. I'm sorry, I don't serve by and large at the counter on a day to day or in front of the phone. It's about what the expectations are of our organisation.
I think the intent there, Councillor, was that Council was one homogenous, harmonious organisation, both staff and councillors.
When things are going well.
Working with its community.
I'll play that. Yeah, very, very well played, team. Okay. If there's no other comments or comments, Councillor O'Connor?
An observation more than anything.
Yep.
This is a teacher's observation.
It's
very negatively connotated, like it's all about complaints, and we've got a complaints policy. Do we need to focus so much on complaints?
Obviously we do, I would think.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there is, although albeit a small section, it does talk about compliments and how we deal with those. However, the most challenging part of any customer service is how you actually deal with a complaint.
So do we need a complaints policy?
We do, and now you will see that there is a at page 72 or page 6 of the policy. What if a customer is not satisfied with the resolution of the complaint? It's the paragraph just about how you can contact us. While the customer is trying to refer a complaint directly to the bodies at any time, customers are allowed to encourage to investigate the complaint first. Further information can be claimed by customers' unreasonable complainant policy. So that's where we're having difficulty with the complainant, vexatious competition. But there is a complaints management policy, and it was highlighted by the one submission. It seems to be a double up, and as you will see in our report, although we acknowledge that, we do say that there's a benefit in having, if someone goes to our website and says, "Oh, how do I make a complaint?" They hit any three of those policies, they suddenly know where to go. So repetition is not the enemy here. But I will say, not only is the complaints management policy up for review, all policies are up for review, and that's what's stated. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rolls.
Through you, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm looking at 5 and taking up on Councillor Flannery, who always says we need the data. Is there any way that the data from compliments or complaints, do we capture those? I presume there's a facility in Tech 1, is there, to do that?
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Rolls. Look, the ECM captures all documentations coming through. I'm sure we could have a process that captures compliments in the manner in which you speak, and so look, we'll take that on notice and we'll see what process we can do. Certainly in discussions with Councillor Armstrong, the way to show whether we're achieving what's in here is to be able to monitor not only compliments and complaints, but the way in which we deal with the volume of correspondence that comes through and is answered and certainly how we address processes where things fall outside the norm, where we have extreme difficulties, which is, we have discussed at a recent council meeting where something just went completely awry, and we need to look at the processes.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace had a question.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak in support of this policy. As expected, in the intervening month while this has been an exhibition, I've had the opportunity to muse on customer service because I had a personal situation involving the ACT Health locking up school children. But in that circumstance, it was very interesting, the outcomes. So ACT Health, they don't return phone calls. The Federal Department of Education, they don't return phone calls. The politicians' offices of both state and federal level have varying capacity of returning phone calls. Our local state member, who I contacted to ask to return my call 3 weeks ago, I'm still waiting. The previous time I rang her was 18 months ago. I haven't held my breath on that occasion, obviously. So I would just say that if Council can uphold the policy that it has proposed, it's doing very well.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, for your input, and I too would like to thank Councillor Armstrong for his involvement in this policy finally getting here. And you talk about our financial situation. This policy's been 4 years in the making, and we've got there. So I also commend staff and the policy. So on that note, if there's no other questions or concerns, I'll put the item to be endorsed. So all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Next item is 21211, the development applications stats for September 2021. Councillor Walker, we right? Or just hold up. You're right, councillors?
Just all policies got to be reviewed within 12 months of the next council, so that'll be a joy for you all.
Yeah. Item 21211. Development application stats for September 2021. The report's there, councillors, and the recommendation. Moved, Councillor Horton.
Just a quick question, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, hang on. I've just lost all hearing ability.
You're right.
I'm after a seconder for the development application stats. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Stadmiller, you have a question?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I signed a form before which declared a pecuniary interest. If we're receiving and noting a report, is that applicable?
Just General Manager.
As part of that.
There's no actual decision, it's information, so I believe, notwithstanding your declaration, you can vote on accepting the report or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Stadmiller. Any other questions in regard to that item? No? I'll put the matter. All those in favour? All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Bear with me. Planning proposal for Telegraph Road. We can skip a few pages, team. And we skip over to the hard copy, I think, page 192, and we skip over that one as well. We've done that one. And we go all the way over to 294, which is a DA 2021/0119 dwelling house at 84 James Lane, Young. Councillors, there's a report there, and the recommendation is that Council grant consent to development application number 2021-0119 for the erection of a dwelling house at lot 1809, DP 754611, 84 James Lane, Young, subject to conditions generally set out in attachment 1.
So moved.
Moved, Councillor Walker. Seconded, Councillor O'Connor. Have any questions in regard to the item? Take that as a no. All those in favour? Aye. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Unanimous. Item 21215 is another DA 2021-0102 dwelling house. Councillors, just bear with me. I haven't got long to go, please. Dwelling house 413 MAYURU SS Road. The report is there and the recommendation's there, and I believe Councillor Walker moved it. Correct? I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Stadmiller, thank you. Any questions in regard to that report, councillors? Take that as the Councillor Fenry.
Look, not that it's a problem, but given the care I have for the environment and wasting paper, surely there's something like a 10% leeway for delegated authorities. know, if it's 2% of the area, is there no leeway?
I'll pass to the Director of Planning.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the 4.6 variation is in the is in the EP&A Act, and it's a variation to our LEP minimum lot size or for a dwelling. So it does require a report to council.
2% variation.
Yeah, it's the LEP is where it has to. If it's affecting that, it does have to come to council.
Thank you for that, and the pertinent point, Councillor Flannery. Okay, to move in a seconder. Any other questions? No. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 21216 is the Stronger Communities Fund project updates and reports there, councillors, and to receive a note. Moved, Councillor Manchester, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Rolls, thank you.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
Observation more than question. I think that when it comes to project status updates, work's underway, doesn't cut the mustard. It really needs to tell us where we are in regard to the project, whether we're 25%, 5%. I take Councillor Flannery's previous matter of 2.2% of the way through, or whether we're 99% of the way through. Their work's underway. I think given the magnitude of these works, financial magnitude of it, and their ability to affect our cash flow, we need to have a better idea, and certainly the next council will want to have a better idea.
Thank you. That's a matter of turning that into percentages. Okay, Councillor Flannery.
Consistent with Councillor Armstrong's questions, or noting Murrumbullera Creek. Any idea what's happening there? I would have thought we're long overdue for actually completion of the work as per the grant round, although it's probably been back to the government, I would hope. And I note that there's grants that we haven't been paid for, but could we get a bit more detail on what's happening with Murrumbullera Creek? I find it embarrassing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a separate report following this report specific to the Murrumburrah precinct that might answer some of your questions, Councillor Flannery. So we could hold your questions to that report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's okay. Councillor Rolls.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a query on page 370 for Blackar Gully precinct. And I understand that the project funds were put in, but that 123,952, where has that been spent?
I don't wish to be flippant,
Okay.
but the same officer who's no longer with us now, it probably went the same place as the $300,000 in the Chinese Tribute Gardens went.
And that's where the plans that are there for Blackar Gully are. Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Thank you, Councillor. Have any other questions in regard to that particular report? No. Then I'll put that we receive a note that. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors.
I'll move the next one with questions.
The next one is the Murrumburrah Precinct Project. It's moved by Councillor Flannery and seconded by Councillor Stadmiller, and Councillor Flannery's first off with the question. Yes, Councillor.
Well, Mr. Mayor, this report really doesn't tell me much about where it's up to, where our grant is up to, just all the timelines. I mean, can we get a Gantt chart or something that gives us more detail for the next meeting? And a summary now, but a Gantt chart with exactly where the works are up to, proposed works, timelines, acquittal of government funding. Are there any risks given the grant?
Anyone like to speak to that or take it on?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. The project is, the funding is still available until December 2022. So we still have the funding there, and what the strategy to deliver on this project is to we are busy putting a tender together to take all the outstanding packages of work and to actually package it into one tender. We have completed the toilet block or amenities block there, but to go piecemeal and try and do each package individually didn't make sense. So what we're doing is we're tendering out the entire package, and from that we will be able to deliver on the whole program as a whole, and also have Gantt charts that we can give to councillors through reports on what we want to do.
Thank you for that, Director. I missed the last report, and we're talking about reporting to council on projects and the dollars spent on them and percentages of where we are in those work. I'd take councillors back, if they go back to the minutes of a meeting in September 2019, there was a works report came on projects to council that night that said Tresillian Park was 85% complete. There's some irony there. Councillor O'Connor.
And this is only in the interest of my own self-preservation. Is it possible to have a council release about the Murrumbullrah Creek? Because for the last couple of weeks, and particularly last week when I went to View Club and got completely splattered all over the floor about the smells coming out of the toilet while you were having the barbecue, can we let the community know? Like, that is a really important project for that community. They have, and I'm not even going to start where Councillor Horton and I have been hammered about it anyway. That was the big stand project for Murrumburrah. And to get hammered about a set of toilets and how close they are to the tables every time I go anywhere is actually embarrassing. Can we please let them know that we are doing something? Because I think the last press release that went out was we have to break this project into 6 separate projects, which the community said, okay, it's got to be 6 individual projects. Then we were told they were being contracted out separately. Fine. Nothing's happened. And I have to say, I'm really over looking at those toilets. I have been down there every day for about 9 days. So please, can we put something out to the community?
I'm sure staff have taken that on board, and I'm probably pretty pleased to say, Councillor O'Connor, I'm pleased I'm not the only one getting hammered. So, share the pain. Very good. Thank you.
Question, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Armstrong.
Through you to the Director of Infrastructure. There's a report due next month detailing the timelines and the milestones for all of our capital works programs. I'm just wondering whether this program will be included, well, these works will be included in that report.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the tender has not been released yet. It is about to be released, so we probably will not, by the time we do the next project, we can indicate what the funding levels are for this project, but probably not have tendered prices for the project.
No, the timelines, milestones of the dollars and the cents will come to council eventually, but the milestones, the timing for the works, is, I guess, something that the council's asking for here and now.
Yep, we'll put it together with the report in November.
Thank you for that. Any other questions in regard to that item, councillors? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Next item, 21218, Roberts Park and Harden Pool Lighting Upgrade Project, and I'm pretty sure I'll have a mover and a seconder here. Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Horton.
Mr Mayor, look, I've spoken to the General Management Director about this, how disappointed I was in the report. And I understand that more information will be coming back, and like so many, this is a legacy issue. As I advised or told or said to the Director, my clear memory of this whole mess is that the Roberts Park money was granted back in administration days, so 5 years ago. The light towers and lights were ordered. The then Director took it upon himself to purchase tilt-over lights without the approval of Council. And I understand that Council then, at a subsequent meeting, moved that we not use tilt-over lights because it was $40,000 of capital that was being used to try and meet operational reductions over time. It then became apparent that we were short on funds for Robert Park's lights, so a proposed disabled toilet at the Harden Pool somehow was within 30 square centimetres of being too small of the then Australian standard. So Council voted to move the funds from that disabled toilet down to the Roberts Park lights to meet the budget shortfall there. The light heads are still on the ground and have been on the ground for, I think, 2 years. There's no towers there. The contractor who was acquitted has since long left, and there's not a hope in hell that we'll get the work done for the price that was originally tendered, and I imagine it doesn't stand anymore. The pool lights at Harden, I went on wax lyrical about a number of council meetings, and the then director told us they were going to fall over any day. They're still standing. I think they'll stand for another 10 or 20 years. It's an absolute waste of money, but it's been voted on by council. I don't know how we get past that. We really need a thorough analysis of this. My biggest concern is, apart from the mess, which I do understand the director is trying to correct amongst actually trying to do the job in front of the director, but my biggest concern is we don't even know whether we've got the money still. And I think that is one of the key concerns of council. So that's right. I mean, apart from, and I didn't really bleat on about it, but when you went through all those grants and the ones that are fully expended, and I've said it before, there's almost no projects at Harden that council have been responsible for. They've been completed. The only one's completed, by and large, by the community. But anyway, can we get a thorough report back to next council and make sure we know what money has been expended and where it's up to?
That's probably the problem. They have too much money granted for that area, mate. Couldn't match it. Thank you for that, Councillor Flannery. And as you said, you've commented on those things before. And again, that word comes up. Legacy. So hopefully it can be addressed. I know Councillor Stadmill has been quite vocal and so it should be about the lights on the football field and the quality of that for players and player safety, and it all comes into account. So I'm sure staff have been made aware of that and take that on board and get it moved forward. Councillor Stadmill.
Just a question, Mr Mayor. I just want to know what the council's legal responsibilities are if the Harden Touch Football Association is to commence their competition and they play and the lights aren't up to standard and someone is injured. What occurs there?
Yes. Who would like to take that on? Take it on notice.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor. There used to be a facility hire agreement that put the onus back on the hiring authority to ensure that the ground was fit for purpose. So, given that, if that's still in place, certainly the duty of care exists there. It needs to be fit for purpose. It would be back on the organising authority.
I had a similar question asked of me of Alfred. Councillor, a similar question asked in regard to the facility at Alfred Oval and hiring out the facility there to other people, and who would take responsibility if something happened when they hired it out, and the answer is they would. It's their responsibility. It's not council's.
Through you, Mr Mayor, notwithstanding that it appears the answer is that it's the responsibility of the hiree, we need to look at that and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Mr General Manager, can I just get something in paper? Because as much as I would like to agree and believe Councillor Armstrong, it's just conjecture in a meeting and I'd like to see something in paper. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other commentary in regard to that report? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes us over to 219, establishment of alcohol-free zones in BOOROWA. Moved by Councillor Horton, seconded by Councillor Walker. Any questions, discussion? Put that. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 21220 Millvale Road upgrade, proposed drainage channel through Crown Land. There's also, I'll get a mover and a second to first. Move Councillor Horton, second Councillor Walker. There was commentary on the radio in regard to speculation on why the Millvale Road project isn't completed, and rather than have speculation, I will now hand to the Director of Infrastructure, and if the speculation that was coming from the learned gentleman, he'd have read the full business paper, he'd have read this report, but obviously he didn't. Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We have had some delays in the Millvale project due to COVID and getting some equipment and materials on site. So the intent is still, and I have had a request come through today from another person saying, is it because we don't have money and it's just a thin layer of tar? And those are the kinds of comments that are going around. It's not just because there's no money. There is money. We are continuing with the project. It's just that there's been delays in material and in resources, and we're still finalising some of the design works on MURRUMBURRAH Road as well. So the project is continuing, and this paper is to ensure that we can actually secure the land that the drainage channel should go through and continue with the project. So the project has been stalled purely because of resourcing from contractors and materials rather than that there's a money issue there.
Thank you. And to the community who are no doubt still tuned in, I hope you got that response. It's not because of a lack of finances. It's been held up to ensure that the works are completed and completed to a standard that is acceptable to everyone. And again, I congratulate staff on being thorough on how they're dealing with these projects now. And it's very warming to all councillors to know that the investigations and resources are being put to really good use to make sure that the works we undertake are done appropriately. So thank you.
Question, Mr Mayor.
Question,
through you
Councillor
to the Director. Director, I've received a number of calls from concerned citizens in regard to the sealing works done on that part of MILVALE Road. I've suggested that perhaps they were jumping the gun a bit, that maybe the seal that's there is a primer seal and rather than a final seal. Can you just elucidate a little bit on the final treatments for the road surface, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that is the final seal, and I'll ask Mr Crisp just to respond to the design on that road.
Just through the Mayor, what we're seeing down there is a 2K seal, that is a final seal road that we have in there. We also have about a 580mm deep pavement sitting on that pavement as well. So we've got stabilised pavement with a road base higher above that, and we've got a 2K seal. At the moment, is performing quite well under stress and strains of that.
Thank you. I shall inform the concerned citizens that it is indeed a final seal rather than a primer seal.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. And I've had similar inquiries in regard to that with the heavy traffic that deals on there, and when it gets to 39 or 40 degrees, but it's reassuring to be told by staff that it will handle what it needs to handle. So thank you. There's no other questions on that item. I'll put that 21220. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me over to 21221, the works report. Mover and the seconder, please. Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Flannery seconded. Any question? Councillor Flannery.
Just a comment, Mr Mayor. Look, given the difficult winter we've had and the amount of works that have been reprioritised, I'd just like to note where gravel roads have been resheeted with gravel, it's amazing how well they've stood up. And I'd firstly like to thank those involved. You know, the staff, they've done a fantastic job. Some of the roads I've driven on that were nearly impassable back in June and July are now standing up really well through the August rain. You know, I think as much as the staff probably didn't understandably received the message that well last Friday, and I had more phone calls Saturday than I think I've had for a long while. It's pretty important that we look after these roads. It's pretty important they get congratulated for the work they've done. But gravel's been the key in good road building.
Thank you for that commentary, Councillor Flannery. Much appreciated by all.
Question.
Councillor Walker.
Is there a pre-harvest road maintenance program?
Take on that. I'll pass to the Director or to Mr Crisp.
Through the Mayor, we have a program that all staff are analysing all their haul roads, they're unsealed, to ensure that we don't have any hiccups through the harvest program. Not just rain harvest, that's also through harvest.
Thank you, Mr Crisp. Have a question, Councillor Armstrong question.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just, I did mention the unsealed roads report that was distributed by Council's asset team to all councillors, and I'd refer everyone to that report. I'm just wondering, given the condition ratings for a number of roads in there, I see that we've graded 22.5 kilometres of Kenyu Road and 17.7 kilometres of Springvale Road. I just didn't notice that there was 22.5 kilometres Kenyu Road that was rated at the appropriate level. I'm just wondering why it is that the Shords Crossing Road, which is a fairly long road, gets a kilometre of grading, but we've spent sufficient funds to do 22.5 kilometres of another road there.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll ask Mr Crisp to respond to that.
Mayor, I'll take that one on notice.
Perhaps you might also take Springvale Road on notice too, Mr Crisp. Thank you.
And yeah, thank you, Mr Crisp, and we look forward to the response coming back to councillors in regard to those two matters. Any other commentary on it before I'd like to put that? I'll put that item. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me over to 21.222. The action summary report, which due to some adjustments gets shorter all the time. So I'm a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Walker and Councillor Manchester. Thank you. Any questions in regard to the action summary report?
I don't know where I'm going to fit it into the rest of the business paper, Mr Mayor, so I'll have to ask it here. I've been asking for a report on the Basham's Lane / Old Monteagle Road Causeway, the costings on that and the basis of it. Could I please get a report to the next council meeting?
Mr Crisp, you take that on notice? Or...
Okay.
Thank you, Mr Crisp.
Comment,
Councillor Walker.
I'd like to compliment the staff on reducing that action list. A few months ago, it was about 15 pages.
Well noted. Thank you, Councillor Walker, and and Councillor Wallace will have.
I just noted that the third item in the list hasn't been addressed, although it was said it would be a couple of times. I look forward to it happening, maybe in this term of council.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I apologise. I haven't been able to organise that workshop, but we'll put it to councillors. There is the closing date for that is sometime in February now. So certainly, I think a workshop. Councillor Rolls did put forward some ideas just in an email through to me. So I welcome any of those, and if you could send those through to me, if I could pull them together and circulate those for discussion, that would be helpful. But not determinative of holding workshops. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Is there another question for me there from a councillor? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. That being said, I'm happy to put that item. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And the last page in my business paper is correspondence for information, and that's to councillors and a recommendation. Move Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Wallace. Thank you. Any questions in regard? No, I'll put that. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff.
Question before you close the meeting in regards to the media releases in a roundabout sort of manner. The naming of the long-awaited playground at Tresillian Park. Is there what'll be the process for that?
Councillor Armstrong, we might take that offline and you can discuss that with staff after. I just don't know about discussing it now when the meeting's finished and it's not.
Oh, thank you. My apologies.
I understand.
I should have interjected earlier.